reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech.
Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
Power Players is back to take a look under the hood of the business of Formula One.
Hi, I'm here to see Pierre Gasly.
Welcome to my workplace.
Do you feel pressure?
Massive pressure.
Ferrari is the best example that we can be very proud of the past to look after the future.
From the iconic brand setting the standard,
Oh boy.
can you imagine Ferrari without racing?
No, and I say no, no, no.
To the newcomers forging ahead.
I grew up my whole life racing against the boys.
This global phenomenon continues to chart new territory.
This was a tennis court 8 days ago.
I can't even believe that.
And the speed of the business has never moved faster.
My career might stop. I'll still be driving some.
Yeah. Probably very fast.
Yeah.
This is so exciting!
This season, we're along for the ride.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
It's Bloomberg Money.
This is the Asia trade.
This is Wall Street Week.
Welcome to Balance of Power.
You're watching Bloomberg Deals. Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend.
This is Bloomberg Television.
At 9:30 a.m., the market tells you what it's really thinking.
We beat the drum to the opening bell.
With deep analysis of the forces driving the price action.
Focusing investors on what really matters.
Where the money flows, which markets are changing.
Conversations with players shaping the narrative.
Innovative growth companies gravitate to NASDAQ.
It's not just like, let's buy the Mag 7 or AI.
That's a really compelling story.
This is where your trading day begins.
And this is Open Interest.
Only on Bloomberg.
Coming up on Bloomberg This Weekend, breaking news overnight. The U.S. launches new strikes on targets in Iran after a drone attack on a ship in the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot. It was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Also, devastation in Venezuela. The death tolls near 1,000 from a pair of powerful earthquakes as international relief agencies head to the region. My conversation with former USAID Administrator Samantha Power, 1 year after the agency was dismantled by the Trump administration.
They put their lives on the line, and they were spit upon by their own government. They were literally, in many cases, physically escorted out of the USAID headquarters if they were in Washington by security guards. That can't happen.
And millions of dollars from AI targeting the midterm elections. From endorsements to deepfake ads, how the industry is influencing voters. Good morning and welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. We are coming to you live from our world headquarters here in New York. I'm Christina Ruffini.
I'm David Gura alongside Lisa Mateo. It is Saturday, June the 27th. Welcome to all of you across our Bloomberg platforms on radio and television and streaming at Bloomberg.com and on the Bloomberg Business app.
All right, we're following the latest back and forth again this morning in the Middle East. About an hour ago, we learned that another tanker in the Strait of Hormuz was struck by a projectile, damaging the bridge of the ship. This report coming from the UK military. No word yet on any injuries.
This incident coming after an Iranian drone strike on a vessel on Thursday. And Christina, that prompted this kind of big debate over whether that would make these ships in the Strait more concerned again about traveling through it. Seems like that hasn't been the case. Bloomberg has been looking at the data of transit throughout the Strait. Seems like it's still at a more normal pace, not back to where it was before the war, but a lot of movement still in the Strait.
I mean, those ships want to get out of there and they got to get back to business.
Yes.
So, all right, speaking of getting to business, we're going to go to Lisa Mateo, who's got the latest headlines.
And let's start where you guys left off. More strikes in the war in Iran. U.S. Central Command says it targeted missile drone locations and coastal radar sites in Iran. The attacks in retaliation for Iran hitting a cargo ship on Thursday in the Strait of Hormuz with a drone. According to Iran's semi-official news agency, Iran has vowed to respond. The strikes come a week after Iran and the U.S. signed a 60-day truce. Oil prices, they plunged 4% yesterday, with West Texas Intermediate trading below $70 a barrel. Speaking at the Faith and Freedom Coalition's policy conference, President Donald Trump said gas prices will fall considerably.
Over the past few weeks, the stock market and your 401ks skyrocketed upward like pretty much nobody's seen before. Oil prices are plummeting downward. We're going to be at $2.50 gasoline.
In other news, supporters of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah protested in the streets of Beirut after Israel and Lebanon signed a framework agreement with the U.S. Now, it was described as a first step toward peace. The agreement does not include Hezbollah and prompted one of the group's officials in Lebanon to warn of civil war. Rescue teams from around the world have arrived in Venezuela to help find people trapped in the rubble after two powerful earthquakes killed more than 900. Now, the powerful 7.2 and 7.5 earthquakes, they struck within a minute of each other on Wednesday evening, knocking out power, toppling buildings, and severely damaging the country's main international airport. The UN estimates $6.7 million worth of damage. Tens of thousands of people are still missing. And Tropical Storm Mikala is bringing heavy rain to many parts of Japan. The country's meteorological agency, it warned high risk of landslides in central parts of the Kanto region. Now, the agency had issued a level 4 warning advising people to evacuate from dangerous areas. And the nation's largest wildfire has expanded its reach as crews in Utah continue to battle new blazes. And the National Weather Service says dry, windy conditions provided fuel for more fires across the western U.S. Utah is now restricting fireworks and declared a state of emergency ahead of 4th of July celebrations. And a close call for a United Airlines flight at Newark Airport last night.
And we almost hit a drone right there at Gimme, United 1513, about 100 feet below us.
Right where you're at now?
Exactly.
Well, that was audio of the pilot from ATC.com. Now, the flight was coming from Key West. Another pilot nearby also reported a drone sight. David and Christina, close call, but yes, no one injured, landed safely.
That's really scary.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, Lisa. We're going to have more on that earthquake with some of our colleagues in the region a little later in the show. But first, we want to go to our colleague in Washington. That's Jeff Mason to talk about this breaking news in the Middle East and out of the Strait of Hormuz. Jeff, we're so glad to have you back with us after a brief Jeff Mason-less few weeks. I know you had some time off, well deserved.
I took a vacation. I know it's like outrageous, but it's good to be back. Thank you, Christina.
Nobody asked us if we approved that, but you have definitely deserved it. I do want to ask you about this strike that the U.S. took in reciprocation for what happened in the Strait. It seems kind of designed to show that, yes, the U.S. responded without blowing up anything too significant or, frankly, blowing up these negotiations. But I wondered what your take was on that.
Yeah, I think your analysis is right. Certainly the U.S. wants to show Iran that it's still going to play if there are attacks or if there are violations of the ceasefire that they find unacceptable. And the president was sort of hinting about that in the clip that you played earlier when he was chatting with reporters yesterday. But yeah, they also, and when I say they, I mean the United States and the Trump administration does not want to unnecessarily undermine this deal that is so important to President Trump, this sort of shaky ceasefire deal that is in place while they continue to negotiate a broader nuclear deal related to the MOU that led to the fighting ceasing or stopping. But I do think it's worth underscoring how shaky that deal is, and the politics of that for President Trump is he has roughly 60 days to have J.D. Vance come up with a longer term agreement is such that you got the midterms just coming right up, and he's expected to be doing a lot of campaigning in the fall, right around the time when a nuclear deal could either be being announced or falling apart.
Jeff, I want to go back to the shakiness of the deal that you just mentioned and the role that the vice president is playing in these talks. I'll read a tweet from the vice president. Iran signed a ceasefire agreement. We have honored it, he writes. If they have disagreements about how the MOU is being applied, they can pick up the phone, but violence will be met with violence. I want to ask you just about sort of how the White House sees these talks unfolding. So it was just last weekend we saw that initial meeting where we saw the Iranians and the U.S. with the Qataris and Pakistanis kind of laying out a path forward here. We're now many days into this 60-day period. Your sense of sort of where things are headed, and then there is this kind of overarching sense of confusion with the vice president is getting at here about whether or not the ceasefire still holds. It is shaky, as you said.
You know, we've talked a lot on this program over the last few months about the contradictions in the rhetoric about the Iran war coming out of the White House. I think this is another example of that. You had Vice President Vance coming out of that last round of talks speaking pretty positively about the fact that he felt that a framework had been led for progress. But at roughly the same time, or right before or right after, President Trump also threatened additional violence, and that's what Vice President Vance is doing in that same post that you were just referencing. So I think the right word is shaky. It's a shaky ceasefire, and the talks themselves are also very fragile. That said, they are talking, and they are doing what the MOU calls for in terms of sitting down and going over next steps with regard to Iran's nuclear program. But again, just for a context check, remember that during the Obama administration, it took a year and a half to put together what's called the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear agreement that President Trump ended up jettisoning when he got into power in his first term, and with which this current deal is being compared, in part because it allows, again, for some inspections of the Iranian nuclear facilities that have gone away as a result of the Obama deal being thrown in the garbage. So again, shaky, but happening, and the fact that they're happening is really crucially important for President Trump and Vice President Vance's sort of political future and the future of their party going into November.
Jeff, what is the status of those talks at the moment? There were some mixed signals yesterday evening, the Swiss coming out and saying there are no planned talks this week after hearing from a couple administration people. Maybe there were. Are people actively speaking to each other in Switzerland or somewhere else in the world? And then we heard for the first time Kushner and Witkoff talk about, there are technical teams who are going to kind of take it from here and work out the details. Do we have any idea who's on those technical teams or how big they are?
I don't know the answer to that. I think you're right to mention Kushner and Witkoff. Certainly the president has appointed those two men, his special envoys, Witkoff being a friend and Kushner being his son-in-law, to spearhead these talks, just as they were spearheading the talks with Iran before the war started. And there is, I think, not a small amount of irony in the fact that they were the lead negotiators at a time when they then pulled back and said, hey, Iran is not serious about giving up its nuclear program. This, of course, was several months ago now, and that led to President Trump deciding on a green light for a war against Iran with Israel. But to the specifics that you're asking, Christina, right now, I can't tell you who is in which, who are the lead or who are the technical negotiators. If it's not those two, that has been something that I know some Democrats and some Iranian experts from the Obama administration have been looking at closely because of, again, the fact that many people were involved in putting together the agreement, the JCPOA agreement, and it's been two I don't want to say inexperienced people. I mean, Jared Kushner certainly has some experience from the first term in terms of diplomacy, but they don't have the years of background that were part of the staff that helped work out that first agreement. So maybe there are some that have been pulled in from the State Department, but I just don't know.
Jeff, let me ask you about Lebanon, because this kind of complementary conflict between Israel and Lebanon is certainly integral to the one between the U.S. and Iran as well. And there was a kind of trilateral meeting that took place. Another one, the first was unprecedented. This was a build-on from that involving Israel, Lebanon, and the United States. And they also came out with a memo of understanding on the heels of that. Let's take a listen to Israel's ambassador here commenting on that deal, and I'll ask you a question on the other side, Jeff.
Well, my concern that I expressed at the beginning of the talks was about Iranian statements and Iranian actions, basically trying to conduct this proxy war against Israel, continue it after it reached an MOU with the United States. And it was very, very important for the United States to make it very clear, and they did so during the course of these talks, that Iran will be kept out of the Lebanon equation. And that we've achieved through this framework agreement.
Jeff, help us understand the importance of this. So Israel's going to maintain this security zone in Lebanon, and we have the Prime Minister of Israel saying that's a huge deal. Israel's continued presence in the security zone in southern Lebanon, a major achievement, according to Prime Minister Netanyahu. What does this mean, again, in the broader terms of sort of where we're seeing these negotiations between the U.S. and Iran taking place? Again, this was such a crucial part of getting to that memo of understanding, something that Iran thought was hugely important.
Yeah, I think apropos shaky, the threat or the looming threat of additional conflict between Israel and Lebanon, which has been hanging over this entire ceasefire, that's the significance, is that they're trying to take that threat away. And the fact that you're hearing positive statements from Israel about it is also very interesting, because the Israelis have certainly signaled that they weren't entirely on board with President Trump's agreement and with Iran and the MOU, and this gives them some ability, as I think the ambassador was just saying, or as Israel has said, to maintain a presence there, while also giving the United States and Iran some assurance that there's not going to be a big blow up in the region between those two countries, and Hezbollah, of course, being an ally or an extension of Iranian forces in that sense. So I think, David, to your question, the broader significance is this still gives Israel a chance to maintain that presence there that it wants, but also provides, at least temporarily, some assurance to both Iran and to the United States that while they are going on to negotiate a broader nuclear agreement with each other, that there's not going to be a blow up in the region.
Jeff, I want to pivot a little bit back to domestic politics, but it's related, I promise. You talked a little bit about how, 60 days from now, we're 60 days closer to that midterm. This is an increasingly unpopular conflict, partially because Americans, as we keep talking about consistently, are concerned about kitchen table issues, the price of fuel, the price of housing, and it's all kind of related. As you see J.D. Vance and possibly Marco Rubio going out on the trail, we had this cage fight on the South Lawn, but there's also a bit of literal cage fight. Yes. Thank you. But there's also a political cage fight kind of going on between Rubio and Vance within this administration. And there's some reporting out this week that Vance is maybe trying to distance himself from this interventionist Trump policy and kind of form a new, more moderate foreign policy as he goes forward. What's going on here? Who is the heir apparent? It seems to change every week. And can you just explain the dynamics between those three in this administration?
Yeah, I mean, Christina, you know that if you say domestic politics, you're going to get me excited. That's what I love to talk about.
I know, Jeff. Welcome back. We wanted to give you a welcome back present.
Jump right in. And I've got some reporting I can share with you on that. I spoke to a White House official this last week very much about the Rubio-Vance dynamic. And I have spoken to one source in the last several months who had said he expected that Rubio is going to resign at the end of this term. Oh, wow. Excuse me, not at the end of this term, but at the end of this year, and launch his own presidential campaign. I asked that of the White House official, who said that's not what he's expecting, that he takes Marco Rubio at his word when he says if J.D. Vance runs for president, that he's not going to run against him. And he said he thought that the more likely outcome is that the two men run together and that the two men then basically clear the Republican field, giving them a chance to jump right in to start raising money for the general election. Now, all of that is TBD, but it's certainly fascinating because of the dynamics that you were just raising. Marco Rubio has not been the key negotiator as Secretary of State with the Iranians. That's been J.D. Vance. And if this turns out to be a big success, then that's going to hand a success to Vance as he goes into the presidential election at the end of this year. If he doesn't, then Rubio will have an advantage. Should Rubio decide to run himself, of maybe creating a little bit of distance between himself and this administration, even as he, of course, has been a key player in all things foreign policy, both as the Secretary of State, but also as the National Security Advisor to the president.
And I should say he was on a trip this week, Jeff. He was not. He was in the Gulf, kind of negotiating some of the stuff around this deal as well. Is that any sign that he's going to become more involved in this negotiations, do you think?
I think it's just a sign that he's not involved. He's not the main interlocutor, but he is not in the outside ring either. And the White House official that I spoke to said that he and J.D. Vance download on a regular basis about the war and about the negotiations, and that there's no daylight there. I will give you guys a heads up that in about 45 minutes, I've got a story hitting the Bloomberg terminal about the strategy that the president and his administration administration are taking to sell the war and some of the issues that creates in terms of political risk for President Trump and for these folks. So keep an eye out for that, and maybe we can talk about it tomorrow.
All right, very good. Keep an eye on the terminal, Bloomberg.com. Jeff Mason, nice tease there. Appreciate that.
Well
Good
done,
to see you
sir.
back.
Well done.
Thank
see you tomorrow.
Jeff Mason, our White House correspondent, joining us on this Saturday morning. Well, coming up here, the U.S. government giving the green light for Anthropic's powerful new AI model despite concerns over national security. Coming after a terrible week for tech and chip stocks. We're going to dive into those headlines when Bloomberg This Weekend continues on Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio, Bloomberg.com, and the Bloomberg Business app.
Oh, hello there. Just wanted to say, Primer is back. We've been scouring the frontiers of science and technology to help explain the difference between the next gold rush and whatever this thing is. And in season 2, we're upping the stakes. More danger.
Now that is some high-grade uranium mineralization.
We used to have a stable climate on this Earth. Right now, we do not.
More science.
We're pushing the envelope of technology in multiple directions. Software, hardware, chemistry, physics.
The cable is like very cold.
And more CEOs that can nail the photo shoot.
Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars are at stake.
While the problems are economic, the solutions are too.
And yes, we will be talking about AI.
There is a lot of humanoid hype out there.
But our future doesn't run on hype. It runs on innovation. Watch season 2 on all these lovely channels.
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance. Bloomberg is covering all things crypto, the people, the transactions, and the technology. Bloomberg Crypto, Tuesdays only on Bloomberg.
In case you missed it, on The Pulse.
It's a $75 billion IPO, the largest in history. I think it presages the beginning of a pretty sizable wave of IPOs, which we're excited about. And I also think it shows you that the capital markets, led by the U.S. capital markets, but the global capital markets are demonstrating a willingness to finance this AI infrastructure build and this build in space, which is quite exciting.
Don't miss The Pulse, live every weekday.
My old mentor, Roger Staubach, who told me when I transitioned, football will never leave you, but you need to leave it.
Wow.
Everyone has a dream, and a lot of dreams are, my dream is to play football and play professional football, and you get the dream comes true, but it is going to end. And the day it ends, the day before it ends, you're one of the best in the world. Great. The next day you wake up, that's gone. What are you great at? And the truth is nothing, right? I'm not great at anything else.
I talk about it all the time, Steve, is this whole idea of it's not from penthouse to penthouse. And what I mean by that is you played for 15, 20 years and you're in the penthouse. That doesn't mean that you come to the business world and you're going to be in the penthouse. Now, you don't start on the third floor or the lobby. You actually have to start in the basement.
Jobs Day, and Bloomberg has the report under surveillance.
Things have started to pick up in this economy based on the jobs number.
But there is a lot of concern about why the labor market is not keeping pace with what we're seeing right now in the AI space.
This Thursday, Jonathan, Lisa, Anne-Marie, and Mike will bring you crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed.
The unsaid thing is that we're basically at full employment.
Apparently the labor market right now, not a problem.
The June Jobs Report, Thursday on Bloomberg.
Making money isn't about drowning in emotions. It's about understanding what's actually happening. Markets are the best way to glean signal from noise, and that is what we try to do every morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Thank you for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton appeared in court Friday. Now, he pled guilty to unlawfully retaining national defense information. The government had accused him of keeping extensive notes on sensitive information to potentially use in a 2020 book he wrote that detailed his time in the White House and his belief that President Trump was unfit for the presidency. A sentencing hearing is scheduled for October 28th. Apollo co-founder Leon Black has testified before the House Oversight Committee, saying he never abused women and was never blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Chairman James Comer issued 2 subpoenas to Black.
For all the NDAs that he is party to
and second for a deposition on July 16th. So this is a result of refusing to answer specific questions about the NDAs and the terms.
Comer said the committee believes that information is vital to their investigation. And OpenAI is receiving pressure from the Trump administration about its new AI model. The company will roll out a preview version of GPT 5.6 to select partners whose names have been approved by the U.S. government before making it more widely available in the coming weeks. Now, in a blog post, the company said, quote, "We don't believe this kind of government access process should become the long-term default." David and Christina.
Lisa, thank you very much. I think that's going to be a big part of this next conversation we're going to have here. Tech stocks finishing a bruising week with anxiety over AI spending and semiconductor supplies, sending chip stocks sharply lower.
That's right. The NASDAQ composite finished the week down minus 4.5%. Well, the NASDAQ 100 and S&P 500 also finished the week in the red. Joining us now, we have Bloomberg Intelligence Global Head of Technology Research, Mandeep Singh, and Bloomberg's macro strategist, Cameron Kreis. Cameron, we're going to start with you. Thanks for coming on the show. I think it's your first time. Basically, what was the biggest source of the volatility we saw in the markets this week?
Well, it's interesting because I think you could argue that the largest driver of the price action was levered ETFs, which are, as the name would suggest, a leveraged way for investors, retail investors, to participate in the movements of the financial markets. And what these things do is kind of, as you'd expect, is they amplify the volatility. And the nature of the product is such that when the market goes up, they have to buy more simply to maintain their target exposure. And when the market goes down, they have to sell more to maintain their target exposure. And when sort of the price action starts to roll over, as we saw this week, these things generate very, very substantial flows. I think on Wednesday, the estimate is that they contributed something like $45 billion of selling into the close. So this is sort of a new development insofar as the assets under management of these things has exploded as the AI trade has driven prices up. And it's sort of reminiscent of what we saw in early 2018 when volatility-based exchange-traded notes sort of blew up the market temporarily in early February.
Our colleague Isabel Lee writing about what you're just talking about there, Cameron, saying what the rout showed us here is how it exposed the machinery of modern speculation and how quickly it can work in reverse. Mandeep, let me turn to you and pick up on what Lisa mentioned just a moment ago. That is what we've seen with Anthropic and OpenAI really over the last few hours here. We saw with Anthropic it winning approval to restore some access to its powerful Mythos 5 artificial intelligence model. I think it was only just a couple of weeks ago that there was that notice really put out on social media that the company could no longer effectively do business globally when it came to those sophisticated models. How do you look at these developments, I should say, with OpenAI facing similar restrictions from the U.S. government? There is some palpable displeasure from Sam Altman about the way that this is being restricted, the way that the government is imposing this regulation on these two AI companies.
I mean, look, the government is definitely finding it hard to, enforce this. So even though, Anthropic's Fable model was restricted from being accessed to other foreign nations and really anyone outside the U.S. citizens, it's very hard to enforce and practice. And at the end of the day, I think what the government is looking for here is really understanding the capabilities of these latest models. What is the incremental capability? And could it be a risk? And so to my mind, it will be the same with OpenAI. I don't expect that to be, a wide-ranging sort of enforcement in terms of preventing model access for a very long time.
Cameron, we've also got SpaceX is going to join the NASDAQ in July, the NASDAQ 100. Since its IPO, it's now fallen basically back to where it started. I want to ask you how that faded so quickly. Is that just kind of a natural correction?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at SpaceX's financials and you didn't know Elon Musk was associated with the company, you probably wouldn't touch it with a barge pole.
You don't think that prospectus full of pictures of rocket ships were inspiring?
I think I think paying 100 times revenues is not the typical path to fame and fortune in the investing or speculating game. Yeah, we've seen this thing before with a lot of high-profile IPOs. I remember, to my mind, the SpaceX circus is what I'll call it. It was sort of reminiscent of what we saw with what was then Facebook back in 2012, which much ballyhooed social media at the cutting edge of the technological the frontier, as it were, and that thing turned into faceplant really for the first year before it eventually turned around. So, listen, anyone who got the allocation and wasn't locked up had sort of an immediate windfall gain on something that they kind of knew was pretty expensive. And so there is this temptation to sort of lock in gains. So I wasn't hugely surprised by this, and particularly in the broader context of, as you say, technology stocks having kind of a rough week, and maybe people starting to reevaluate some of the breathless narratives that have underpinned the whole AI trade. We saw, for example, in Korea late in the week, SK Hynix, one of the big memory chip makers, has announced plans to sell stocks, raise around $29 billion, I think, on the New York exchange. And both SK Hynix and Samsung are talking about pretty huge capex plans. Now, one of the reasons that chip stocks have benefited so much is that they've been raking in cash, while the hyperscalers have obviously been spending a tremendous amount of money on capex. And what we've seen over the course of last year is those hyperscaler capex-heavy stock prices have actually fallen in aggregate as the chip makers have soared. So if the chip makers are now at the part of the cycle where they too have to start deploying significant sums in capex to maintain capacity, then that makes the investment prospects perhaps a little less rosy than we may have thought even a week ago.
Mandeep, the beauty of the show is we can kind of look back before we look forward. We have a moment here to pause, and I want to go back to the beginning of the week, which was when Micron Technology reported its earnings, and looking back before that, even to the
I'm impressed you can remember the beginning of the week at this point, but yes,
there was so much anticipation to see those earnings, and then so much relief when those earnings came out. And I wonder what's that emblematic of, picking up on what Cameron was saying just a moment ago here about sort of the way that the chip stocks are so integral to this broader AI ecosystem, and sort of how much faith or interest investors are paying to how they're doing, how they're able to keep up with the demand that we're seeing.
Yeah, look, I think from the results, it was really about pricing. Anytime a company gives you, 74% quarter-over-quarter growth, and, the bulk of it is driven by pricing, I think it tells you the story about the supply-demand mismatch, which is why, all these companies have to increase their capex and look for some of these hyperscalers who are suffering because of these high memory prices. They'll look for alternatives. Like just yesterday, there was news around Apple looking to use Chinese memory chips from CXMT. They have gone to the government for approval. So that's where I think you will start seeing some optimizations, whether it's using chips that consume less memory. And there will be, I think, changes in terms of how people are going about their memory consumption, because clearly, Apple raising prices for their devices, or these hyperscalers having to raise the compute prices, is going to result in demand destruction. And it'll be interesting to see how, companies like Micron and SK Hynix kind of go forward with their price increases. And they talked about, using a lot of long-term contracts going forward to create a ceiling for how much price can go up. But it has already gone up substantially, and that's why I think you see the reaction in the hyperscaler stocks.
Right, we saw those Apple shares plummet after saying they were going to have to raise their prices due to those chip costs. Finally, I want to ask you, Cameron, New York Times is reporting that OpenAI is considering delaying its IPO until next year after seeing what we were just talking about with SpaceX. Are companies starting to get concerned, or maybe just seeing the reality of the funding troubles for these massive IPOs as they consider going public?
Well, I'm not sure if it's to do with SpaceX so much as it is to do with OpenAI's own financials. Obviously, I'm not privy to those, but I think there's legitimate questions about how much revenue the company is actually generating relative to its cost planning. And the other issue is whether we're, as Mandeep just said, whether we're already starting to see some sort of demand destruction as a result of price rises. Anthropic obviously changed their pricing structure this month. And my own personal experience is that the price went up. So whether companies are deriving enough benefit from AI to justify a higher cost is something that I think is a legitimate question. And more generally, we're so used to technology being a driver of disinflation. The big change, the big macro change around all this AI at the moment for the last few years is that technology is now a driver of inflation, as we saw with Apple. The reason the stock price got crushed this week is that the presumption, which is a natural one, is that the products were previously priced to maximize profitability. By raising prices substantially, obviously the company is going to be suffering from riding down the demand curve, where higher prices lead to lower aggregate demand. And that's something that the technology industry generally is going to have to try to deal with. Yeah. And that OpenAI is evidently musing on delaying their IPO is suggestive that for them, the numbers might not be that attractive at the moment, because no one delays an IPO because they're making too much money and having too much fun.
That's very true.
Fair enough.
Cameron, great to speak with you. Cameron Christ joining us there. He is a macro strategist at Bloomberg News. Mandeep Singh with us as well, of course, global head of technology research at Bloomberg Intelligence. Just looking at that New York Times report, Christina, interestingly here, they're reporting Sam Altman was pushing his advisors to find a way for that startup to be valued at $1 trillion. So clearly there is still something to that figure, something in those numbers.
Seems to be the new number. Like a trillionaire jealousy happening there. All right, coming up next, we've got a record-breaking heat wave gripping Europe. France sweltering under its hottest day ever. How climate change is translating to higher prices for just about everything. That's coming up straight ahead on Bloomberg This Weekend.
Trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The opening trade brings you everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Anna Edwards.
And I'm Tom McKenzie.
This is your opening trade.
Only on Bloomberg.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives, and that revolution is playing out in real time. From finance to defense tech, AI to entertainment, from the road to the stars. Bloomberg is bringing you the stories of companies and people that are pushing tech to new frontiers, and the politics reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech.
Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
When news breaks,
a redhead across the Bloomberg terminal.
Bloomberg has you covered.
Trump's global tariffs are struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court.
For all the context and clarity you need.
There's going to be now tons of tariff headlines until midterm elections.
Hear it first on Bloomberg.
People ask me all the time, what is the key to being a really good investor? And I tell them it's to surround yourself with and work with the best investors you can find. On Bloomberg Wealth, I'm going to take you to meet the greatest investors in the world, the people that I would like to have managing my money.
As investors, we are always worried about the issue of the moment. Success is about time in the market as opposed to timing the market.
As an exchange, what can you do to make it more attractive to be a publicly traded company?
Talk to our customers. We spend a lot of time with our listed companies, listening to their concerns, and then act as an advocacy group for those companies to allow a company to tell their story in the most efficient way possible and reward them for the good disclosures that they are making in the market.
Is there any sort of financial innovation that you could drive to get more companies to list? tokenization has come up.
Well, we did announce our tokenization initiative earlier this year. We already built the technology, we've already done a variety of proof of concepts. It allows for instantaneous settlement 24/7, but it is going to be a platform that runs in parallel to our more traditional exchanges.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg. Today's CFOs are reshaping the C-suite. Bloomberg's chief future officer shines a spotlight on these dynamic leaders. Furniture and home goods retailer Wayfair has long been a heavy hitter in e-commerce. Now it's branching out into brick and mortar stores, and CFO Kate Gulliver loves the challenge.
It is pretty wild to be almost 25 years into the business and be launching an entirely new channel.
Watch Chief Future Officer only on Bloomberg.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories. And we're here, where the action starts in Sydney.
And in Tokyo, get ahead as the global trading day begins.
The Asia Trade, weekdays only on Bloomberg.
Anything we do in Africa is going to be more risky than the US. I think the approach we want to take is, how are we being compensated for that risk? And one of those is obviously going to be a valuation question. In our minds, valuation is a lot more attractive in Africa, even if we adjust for some of those Africa risks that a lot of Western investors see. So yes, in a lot of ways, you take some of those models that, as I said, might be more asset medium or asset heavy. There might be some more inherent risks. However, if we're saying we're adding some risk because of that kind of model, but we're now solving a core problem as opposed to maybe a nice to have solution in Africa, that might actually offset it. Where if you're solving something that people really absolutely need and can't live without, in a way that then that's a lot less risky. So again, we'd encourage investors to have a less binary view. In other words, the US isn't risky, Africa is risky. That's going to lead to a lot of complications down the road.
Thanks for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Well, an heir to the Walmart fortune is acquiring a minority stake in the NBA's Chicago Bulls. Now, the deal with Lucas Walton and his wife also includes part of the United Center where the Bulls play their home games. Terms of the agreement, they were not disclosed. The last place Mets have fired their manager, Carlos Mendoza, will be replaced by former San Diego Padres manager Andy Green, who was already working in the organization. The PGA Tour, well, it continues at TPC River Highlands in Connecticut. Topping the leaderboard is Scotty Scheffler at 16 under par, followed by Victor Hovland at 14 under par. Akshay Bhatia and Eric Cole stand at 12 under par. In the World Cup yesterday, France topped Norway 4-1. Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia tied at 0 apiece. Egypt and Iran tied at 1 apiece. Senegal defeated Iraq 5-0. Spain topped Uruguay 1-0. And Belgium, they beat New Zealand 5-1. Today, more action. Croatia takes on Ghana. Colombia battles Portugal. Algeria goes up against Austria. Panama plays England. Congo battles Uzbekistan. Oof, that's a tough one. And Jordan plays Argentina. David and Christina. Oh, the round of 32, that begins tomorrow. Yes. So some more excitement there.
Continuing to watch. You watching this still?
Yeah,
no.
I've also been to Uzbekistan.
You've been to
cool.
Uzbekistan?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Thank you.
Right.
Next time I'll have you say it.
The local specialty is a horse sausage stew.
Yum.
I'm just going to pause for us all to think
It was, listen, it was really good. It was an experience.
It was
it's not,
really
not something
good.
I would normally eat, but it was good.
That's on a menu somewhere.
We're going to move on
Baku.
now. Correct. We're going to move on now.
Record-breaking heat has blanketed Europe this past week, causing fears over power supply, public health services, and public transportation.
And with these record-setting temperatures reportedly likely to become more common around the world, places around the world, it's expected to increase prices, putting a heavy burden on people's wallets.
Climate inflation. For more on this, we're joined by Bloomberg's weather and climate reporter Joe Wertz, Bloomberg climate reporter Emma Court. Joe, let me start with you and just ask you about the phenomenon we're seeing. We've all seen the videos, the pictures of people across Europe and in London grappling with all of this, bemoaning the fact that AC isn't as widespread there as it is here in the United States. First of all, what's it been like? And second of all, sort of how out of the norm is what we've been seeing here over these last few days?
It's been brutal, frankly. I'm sitting in a 83-degree house right now that's just barely keeping up with the fans and the little portable air conditioning unit I have right now. But it's been especially hard in France. That's sort of been the epicenter of this heat wave. This high-pressure heat dome that compresses air, which heats up as it pushes it close to the ground, and it's just been hovering over France for more than a week, and it's just been pushing up temperatures to historic levels. In France, they've seen highs of 111 degrees Fahrenheit in the western part of the country. In Paris, 109. Here in the UK, it's been unusually warm for this early in the summer. Temperatures setting monthly records here, 99 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been miserable. It's been deadly. Scores of deaths in Spain, France, all over the continent here. And look, it's been, too hot to work in a factory, too hot to sleep, too hot to even have a pint outside and watch the World Cup. These are all activities that have been limited or banned in some way due to just the extraordinary temperatures we're seeing here. And this is just really out of the realm of what's typical here in Europe this time of year.
Too hot for a pint, Christina.
Too hot. I didn't know that happened in the UK, but that's really significant. But Emma, in addition to being dangerous and uncomfortable, climate change can also be expensive. Can you explain to us, you've written extensively about the financial impact of increasing heat waves. Can you walk us through the main points?
Yeah, so obviously there's a range of extreme weather events that you can see with climate change, but the most clearly studied that we've seen has really been sort of the impact of extreme heat on something like inflation. So we know as temperatures rise, because so much of agricultural production is occurring outside, and you've got crops out in the heat, you've got livestock, things like that out in the heat. You start seeing pretty significant disruptions in harvests. You have, maybe your chicken meat production is not going to be as strong that year as it was the year before. And this can all add up into, pretty significant increases for food prices, and food prices can then ripple out into the rest of the economy, raising prices more broadly. And we've actually seen this in Europe before. So this is not the first summer that Europe has been hit by a really intense heat wave. In the summer of 2022, what was a record-breaking heat wave then was estimated to raise food prices by about 0.7% in Europe that year, and it raised overall inflation up by about 0.3% that year. And so I think it's really, that example can really help us see how some of these things unfolding right now might, play out more broadly.
Emma, let me ask you just about how governments and policymakers are trying to blunt some of the difficulties that have come with this on the economic side of things. I think here in the United States, we have a new Fed chair who has made no secret of how distasteful he finds the Fed's efforts on kind of climate finance and efforts related to climate change. I wonder, is that emblematic of the way that other central banks are approaching this issue, other policymakers are approaching this issue, or is the U.S. kind of standing alone in this regard as they kind of look again at the economic impacts of higher temperatures and climate change?
No, that's not broadly representative of how central banks are thinking about it. I mean, the ECB in particular has really been leading the charge on concerns about this phenomenon known as climate inflation, and they've been studying it pretty extensively. They have for years. They've obviously long had sort of a focus on climate change in their economic policy making. But this idea of climate inflation has really come to the fore because of the number of sort of extreme weather events that we've seen in recent years and the ways that it's played out, begun to play out really in a clear economic way on pricing. And so, yes, the ECB has been at the forefront of this, but central banks all around the world have been trying to kind of get their arms around this. It's an early field. It's something that people are only beginning to understand now. And it's a complicated subject. It's not clear that climate change will always raise prices. There are actually situations in which, it might cause deflation as well, though the overall concern is really that the overriding effect on prices will be upward. And then there are questions about how much can we adapt as a society, right? We know we can, for instance, perhaps begin to put in ACs in places that didn't have infrastructure for that before, but to what extent can you shield crops from the heat when agricultural production is always been pretty much done outside. Right. So there are questions about how much we can adapt as a society and blunt some of the price effects of these changes.
And Joe, it may not be as simple as putting in AC units. I mean, they went around France. I watched one of the networks did a montage, and they talked to a bunch of people sweating their faces off in a public park, and almost every single one of them said air conditioning is not the answer because long term, it's more energy prices, it's more energy costs. They need longer term solutions. I feel like Europe has spoken more about climate change than other parts of the world, but are there any policies, are people advocating for any specific policies that will or can make a difference, or is it a lot of, and pardon the pun, hot air?
Well, it's hard to think of any one policy that's going to fix this. I talk to climate scientists and researchers who look at this, and they say, look, this is not one tipping point with one solution. We're talking about a cascade of different factors that are all kind of failing at once. I mean, we've got infrastructure here that was built centuries ago that wasn't built with these types of temperatures in mind. Europe is the fastest warming continent on Earth. It's warming at double the rate of the global average. And, you're looking at systemic failures in a lot of cases across the board. Health systems, transit systems. It's too hot to ride a train in many cases here. The subway and the tube here, it's a furnace down there. It's affecting real estate, prices. It's affecting every part of the system in every imaginable way. You mentioned energy prices too. I mean, this heat wave has made rivers in France too warm to cool nuclear plants with the environmental regulations that they have there. It's also smothered wind speeds. We had two instances where the UK warned that they were worried about power supplies, that they weren't going to have enough power. So this is really affecting really every facet of how people live and work.
Yeah. All right. We're going to have to leave it there, but it was really fascinating. Thank you both. Joe Wirtz covers weather and climate for us, and Emma Court covers food, health, and climate as well. Thank you so much.
And a Bloomberg This Weekend correction. I made a joke after Christina's comment about the horse stew in Uzbekistan. I said Baku. That, in fact, is in Azerbaijan.
It is. It is. It's Tashkent.
Capital of Uzbekistan. My apologies.
I haven't been to Baku. We'll put it on our list. No, I actually really want to go.
All right. Up next, Lisa's most read stories, including rumors of a possible party at Madison Square Garden ahead of July 4th.
All right. You can keep us on your live streaming news, Bloomberg TV, Bloomberg Radio, and on the...
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Insight.
When they say fair taxes, fair share, what do they mean? Like, I agree with the fact, if it were up to me, I saw Jeff Bezos, who I love, swashbuckling. I don't think the lower people making under a certain amount have to pay any taxes at all. And that's what people seem to want. They think that somehow being anti-business is going to help a city. It's not. So we all want to pay fair taxes. That's not the point. New York's booming, so you're not going to see it in this year's taxes, but a lot of people are paying billions of dollars taxes left. Why do you want that? How does that help the lower paid person in New York?
So what do you make of the beef Mamdani has with Ken Griffin? I mean, there's been a lot of pushback as well from...
My view is, I think vilifying people, simplifying arguments, even if you think it's politically, is a bad idea. And I think he probably realizes that was a bad idea. It's probably why he's seen a bunch of us now.
Don't miss Bloomberg Insight live weekdays.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Tech Asia.
Humanoids are particularly interesting for many reasons. One is that they can actually go into regular everyday environments, which were designed for humans. The other reason from the machine learning perspective is that humanoids have the shape of humans. So perhaps we can learn from humans doing different tasks and transfer that onto humanoids.
Don't miss Bloomberg Tech Asia every month.
What was it like starting all over again? One day you're in a big company with a big parent, and then you have to start all over again.
You know, it was really exciting and invigorating. I felt like a young kid again when I started Jones Road. And right before we launched, I definitely had a sudden emotion of saying, uh-oh, what if I'm a one-hit wonder? I was a little scared, but then I just threw it up into the wind and went for it.
Jones Road, where'd that name come from?
Well, I sold the rights to Bobby Brown to Estee Lauder when we sold the company, so I couldn't use it again. So we needed a name because I wanted to launch Jones Road the day my 25-year non-compete was up. I needed a name, and I didn't have one. And I was driving to the Hamptons with my husband. My head was down on Waze, and I looked down, I saw Jones Road, and I said, Jones Road Beauty. He said, I like it. And that's how it became Jones Road.
Mind being called an ideological lunatic or a bunch of left-wing nut jobs?
You know, I've been called worse things than that.
23andMe, I think, is so incredibly valuable. We're coming back.
What magazines were you reading as a kid?
I don't think I was reading magazines until I was in them.
So is it Paradise Ahead or Gattaca?
Maybe somewhere in the middle.
Well, if you liked our last segment banter on Central Asian capitals, you're going to love what's coming up next. We've got BTW, Bloomberg This Weekend.
That's right. I'm very excited.
I'm here for it. I'm Christina Ruffini. That's David Gura. Yes. And at the end of the table here is Lisa Mateo, who's going to catch us up on some of the stories you might have missed this week. Lisa, what you got?
All right, I got to start with the New York Times because there could be a big celebration this weekend.
Heard about this.
Let's get right
to it. I know where you're going with this. I'm going to walk away from the table.
At MSG. Clues, they actually point to you-know-who we're talking about. Yes, Taylor Swift, and Travis Kelce. Here's what the sources are telling the Times, okay? They're saying that Swift booked a multi-day event at MSG. They don't know what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, the first night is going to be July 2nd, about 100 people at the Garden.
Okay.
Then the next day, about 1,000 people, and possibly some stage performances on top of that. Several members of the Kansas City Chiefs, they booked hotel rooms around the Times Square area for that weekend, too.
That is good reporting.
So I don't know. No one has confirmed it. It is possible they could maybe get married before, and maybe this is an after party, or who knows. But the thing is, it's a busy time. It's 4th of July weekend. They're going to be shutting down streets. You have the parade of ships. You have World Cup on top of it. So nothing's confirmed, but this could be, I mean, it's something that's been talked about.
Boy, has it been.
I mean, last weekend we talked about, people were talking about Rhode Island. Like, it's gonna happen last weekend. You know, that's where they were hoping, but it didn't happen. So maybe, I don't know, she loves 4th of July. That's what.
Does she really?
That's one of her favorite holidays.
Wow.
So
another funny facet of this article is, I guess, like, she has a plot of like a compound.
Yes.
Someplace outside the city where she sets up a lot of her stage shows and does choreography.
Wow.
Apparently that's like
Look at you with your Taylor Swift knowledge.
I'm interested because it
what have you done with David Gura?
It affects me as a New Yorker and as a casual listener to Taylor Swift. But
casual, I love it.
I wish them well.
For what it's worth, I don't buy that this is the ceremony.
You don't
I think
think
like
so?
an after party or reception is much more likely. I just don't think that's the vibe. But you know, maybe. What do I know?
She's a Knicks fan. Knicks fan, we found out.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, maybe.
Times sisters were there with her, and
she had good seats. You are
David,
all the
I am
knowledge
concerned
of
at the level of Swiftie knowledge coming from the center of this table right now.
They made those shirts. They made the
shirts were cute. The shirts were cute.
Silk screen them.
Very nice, David.
You're done, Lisa.
Right,
Let's move on because you're scaring
we don't
me.
want them to learn too much about me.
How about ranch dressing? Are you a fan of ranch dressing?
I'm actually not.
Yeah, you're
I'm
not.
Sorry.
Okay.
I should say yes and. Sorry.
You know who was a fan? World Cup people from overseas.
This.
Okay, so this is in the Atlantic. It says, what is it about ranch dressing? Well, let me tell you. Okay, so they're traveling, to the U.S. for the World Cup. There's a 24-year-old. Here's what she says. Why did no one tell me ranch sauce is like crack?
Ranch sauce.
So the TSA actually posted something, and they said, if you're visiting for a very large sporting event and you happen to discover ranch while you're here, please pack it in your checked bag on the way home. So people are trying to take this back home.
You can't take that back. Have a bottle of it.
And did you you see Hidden Valley Ranch put out a thing that they're working on TSA compliant ranch packets
nice,
that you can take? They had, like, this is AI, but we're working on it, we promise.
Are you a ranch fan?
I'm a blue cheese person.
Oh, yeah, I prefer blue cheese.
But
I like the ranch.
I appreciate ranch on some things, and I can appreciate that if you've never had it before, it is pretty solid.
Tart.
It's
is.
tart.
Yeah.
Buttermilk, you know, it has a little garlic powder, onion powder, herb spices. You can put it on pizza.
No shade to Hidden Valley, but like people who are new to ranch, there are other better ranches out there.
I didn't know that there are.
Yeah.
I thought that's the ranch.
I mean, that is the classic, but there's better ones.
There's other
We don't
ranch.
endorse a product on the show.
Never.
But yeah.
But the reason why they get so excited is because they only get the dry powder. They don't get like the
interesting.
The
This doesn't
liquidy
exist
stuff.
in Europe?
Because it's hard to send over. So that's the reason they get so
like
excited
stuff
about
that's
it.
banned over there. I'm sure there's something
Maybe
that
they'll
they're
go
not allowed to
searching
eat.
for the Hidden Valley Ranch. See if they find it. They've got a few weeks left till the tournament ends.
All right, we want to talk
yes,
dating?
okay, we can move on. Talk dating, sure.
Dating.
Yeah.
I love
all
this
right.
one. Okay, this is from Bloomberg.
Okay.
Gen Z, always about Gen Z, I see
Always.
lately. They would rather not date than pay $250 for dinner and drinks. Okay, so this
Romance
is...
ain't dead,
It's
ladies
not.
and gentlemen.
It's a Bank of America survey. 51% of Americans 18 to 29 reported spending $0 on dates a month in 2026.
Wow.
It's expensive. They're saying
It's really
it's
So are the
expensive.
apps, I guess. Not appetizers, but the applications that they're using.
David Gura, what is happening today? I will say, if I go out on a date with someone and they're not getting a second date, I will insist on splitting the bill.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think it's
Is that the
really...
tell?
It is a tell
That's
because
a
I think
sign.
it's
Now
really,
you know.
I think it's really unfair because dinner is so expensive for somebody to have to pay upwards of $200 if I know I'm not going
Do you
out
think
with
that's a
them.
widely shared courtesy?
No, I don't.
No. All right.
Because the cost of as women on going on dates is a lot more. We got to do all the products and everything else. Like
True.
So a lot of people argue the pink tax is offset by guys paying for dinner, which I think there's a fair argument for that. However, listen, times are hard. People do not need
Times are
to
hard.
pay for a dinner. They've already suffered through 2 hours having to talk to me. They shouldn't have a financial tax on top of that.
3 hours each day for me and
Christina
Lisa. Just wanna
Ruffini,
point out.
chiming
You're
in.
literally getting paid to be here and put up with me, so hush.
Okay, do we have time for one
We
more?
have one more,
Okay,
sure.
one more.
Make it
Okay,
fast.
this is from the Washington Post. For less than $100, I clicked my way toward a college degree in days. Okay, so let me explain this. They're talking about those unaccredited online platforms like Sophia Learning, Study.com, Straight Line. So you can't get a diploma from them, but a lot of colleges' transfer policies allow the credits to transfer toward a degree.
Oh, interesting.
So that's what a lot of people are doing. So this person from the Washington Post, they took a few courses and they found out that only a few hours to complete a course. It costs as little as $17 each. So they're saying a lot of people are catching on and going this route for the more affordable college degree. And there are even so-called tutors you can hire for about $70 to complete the entire course for you.
Yeah, saw that coming.
So yeah, it's a new way to get a degree because the cost of college, I mean,
Very expensive.
insane.
believe me, it is
Believe you
not
me.
affordable at this point.
Yeah, have fun with that, you two. My dog's not
There you
going to
go.
college,
All
so
right.
we're going to be fine.
We'll work on that.
Thanks,
Brutus.
Lisa.
Thank you very much. Quick reminder here. Be sure to join us on July 4th for a special edition of Bloomberg This Weekend celebrating America 250. We're going to broadcast live from the Intrepid on the Hudson River in New York from 7 to 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Of course, the invitation is open for Taylor Swift, Mr. Kelsey, to join us if they
The
are
odds
here
of
and
me
would like.
pushing you off the deck of that ship
Very
are not
high.
zero.
Very
All right,
high.
we're coming up on 8 a.m. in New York. Stick with us. The next hour of Bloomberg This Weekend starts right now. Coming up on Bloomberg This Weekend. Breaking news overnight. The U.S. launches new strikes on targets in Iran after a drone attack on a ship in the Strait of Hormuz.
Do you consider the ceasefire to still be in place?
I don't like the fact that they took a shot. It was fine, but it took a little beating. They shouldn't be doing that, so you'll find out.
Also, devastation in Venezuela. The death tolls near 1,000 from a pair of powerful earthquakes as international relief agencies head to the region. My conversation with former USAID Administrator Samantha Power, 1 year after the agency was dismantled by the Trump administration.
They put their lives on the line, and they were spit upon by their own government. They were literally, in many cases, physically escorted out of the USAID headquarters if they were in Washington by security guards. That can't happen.
And millions of dollars from AI targeting the midterm elections. From endorsements to deepfake ads, how the industry is influencing voters.
welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. It's 8 a.m. in New York from Bloomberg's World Headquarters. I'm Dave Gura.
I'm Christina Ruffini. We're here with Lisa Mateo, bringing you the latest breaking news, reports, and analysis live this morning and every weekend from 7 to 10 a.m. All right, military action has picked back up in the Strait of Hormuz. Another tanker strike early this morning. The U.S. striking back against targets in Iran despite a ceasefire allegedly holding and still in effect. We're going to go straight to Lisa Mateo with the headlines.
You got it. In Tehran and Washington, they continue to point the finger as to who violated that ceasefire. After American aircraft hit Iranian weapon sites on Friday, Iran now says it has targeted U.S. sites in the Persian Gulf. And the U.S. strikes on missile storage and coastal radar installations, they were in response to an Iranian drone attack on a Singapore-flagged container ship in the Strait of Hormuz on Thursday. President Trump talked about it yesterday.
You know, they shot a drone yesterday at a big ship going into the Hormuz Strait. They shot 4 of them. We knocked down 3 of them. One of them, I guess we didn't miss it. Nobody saw it coming. And it hit a ship and did some damage. You can't do that stuff.
In a statement, Central Command said that it would continue to provide safe passage, coordination, and support to commercial vessels transiting the strait. Now, meanwhile, supporters of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah protested in the streets of Beirut after Israel and Lebanon signed a framework agreement with the U.S. It was described as a first step toward peace. The agreement does not include Hezbollah and prompted one of the group's officials in Lebanon to warn of civil war. The State of Emergency Service of Ukraine says 15 people were wounded in a Russian strike in the southeast. Firefighters battled blazes as buildings and vehicles burned at the scene. Rescue teams from around the world have arrived in Venezuela to help people trapped in the rubble after 2 powerful earthquakes killed more than 900. The powerful 7.2 and 7.5 earthquakes, they struck within a minute of each other on Wednesday evening, knocking out power, toppling buildings, and severely damaging the country's main international airport. The UN estimates $6.7 million worth of damage, tens of thousands of people still missing. And Tropical Storm Makala is bringing heavy rain to many parts of Japan. The country's meteorological agency, it warned high risks of landslides in certain parts of the Kanto region. And the agency had issued a level 4 warning advising people to evacuate from dangerous areas. And the nation's largest wildfire has expanded its reach as crews in Utah continue to battle new blazes. The National Weather Service had issued a rare, particularly dangerous situation warning as dry, windy conditions, they provided fuel for more fires across the western U.S. Utah now restricting fireworks and declared a state of emergency ahead of those 4th of July celebrations. David and Christina.
Lisa, thank you very much.
Thanks, Lisa.
We begin with that breaking news again from the Strait of Hormuz. A tanker hit by an unidentified projectile, a familiar story here over the course of this last week, following renewed strikes by the U.S. on Friday and an Iranian drone attack on a vessel on Thursday. The International Maritime Organization has formally paused evacuations through the strait while assessing the security situation there.
That's right. Joining us now is Bloomberg's energy and commodities reporter in Singapore, Stephen Shipczynski. Stephen, so nice to see you again. We've been saying this morning it's a bit like Schrodinger's Strait. It's never clear if it's open or closed until you're actually trying to get through it. What is your take of the status of traffic through the strait and whether it's safe for vessels to go through at this time?
You know, I think when you look at the traffic, even after the strike, right, that's happened today, what happened on Thursday with the ship being hit, even though a ship was hit on Thursday, there were still vessels going through, both on the Iranian side and also the Omani side, which is where the ship was and where Iran wants to assert pressure and power so that they can get more ships going through their route. Now, safety, that's a big question. And, you know, you have 2 ships hit in the last few days. But despite that, there are still some ship owners who are willing to go through. I think the situation is definitely improved compared to where we were before the U.S.-Iran interim deal was signed about a week and a half ago. That being said, we are still far below where we were in February, where you had 140 plus ships going through on a daily basis. Now we're at maybe 30, 40. There could be more if they're dark, but you are far below the normal levels. And I think at this moment, you know, Thursday, you had one ship struck. So, you know, maybe that was a fluke. There were a lot of vessels still going through. I think after this weekend strike, there is going to be a lot of ship owners, captains, crews, energy exporters really kind of assessing the situation and rethinking whether or not they're going to send their vessels through this really vital waterway.
And is most of that traffic still leaving, or is it going both ways at the moment?
So a lot of it had been leaving. There were some ships in there that were stuck for nearly 4 months. They want to get their crews out. They want to get the oil and gas out. There were hundreds of vessels that had product that needed to reach customers. That being said, we are still seeing some empty ships come back in, but not at a rate that would sustain normal exports like we had seen before the war began in February.
Stephen, let me ask you about the prospect of there being kind of tolls or fees put in place here going forward. It's something that we've heard about from the Secretary General of the International Maritime Organization last week on the show. Let's play a bit of what he had to say just about the prospect of that happening.
When it comes to straits for international navigation, there's no fundamental basis for in international law to actually introduce or impede this transit by the imposing of tolls or fees. And that's a message that I've maintained with the countries in the region, because we need to take this step by step. And as we are progressing with the positive actions that have been taken recently, we are exploring what kind of mechanisms we can put in place, voluntary mechanisms within international law that can assist the countries to manage these heavy transited routes like international straits. And of course, this is aiming at providing further assistance for aids of navigations, protection of the environment and security. We've done it in other parts of the world like Southeast Asia, but anything has to be in accordance with international law.
So, Stephen, there's this confusion about the strait. Is it open? Is it not? Is it safe? Is it not? There's this confusion as well. Are there going to be tolls or fees or not? It seems like Oman is indicating that long-term there might be something like this. And I had a chat with Mark Champion, a columnist for Bloomberg Opinion this week. He said maybe the model here is something like Turkey does in the Bosphorus. There's not a toll in name, but a ship would pay certain fees to navigate through that waterway. How do you see all of this playing out?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the argument, right? Whether it's the Turkey waterway, whether it's the Suez, whether it's Panama, you do have to pay fees in those areas. Now, I think there are two key things you have to look at. The Trump administration has said time and time again that that's a non-starter. They don't want there to be tolls or fees. Maybe there will be some wiggle room. Maybe there will be something that, the Trump administration can still say that they won, and maybe it won't be a toll or a fee, but it'll be like a safety insurance waiver. Those sorts of things could come out of this. But you also have to look at the mechanics behind it, because at the end of the day, the Iranian regime is sanctioned. And when I talk to oil and gas traders, the biggest issue of the toll isn't whether or not ethically it can be done. It's more, will the banks allow it to happen? Because when there are sanctions involved, banks and companies and risk departments don't want to get involved. If you're a big oil department, transit isn't just decided by the trading desk. There's a risk management desk as well, and they will say, hey, hold on, we don't want to get involved with sanctions. We don't want to be paying an organization we're not aware of, that we don't have a relationship with. So maybe it could exist with some companies, some buyers, but if this were to move forward, it would likely reduce traffic through the strait, or at least really limit the amount of companies that would be able to send their ships through. So it would be an issue, not just geopolitically, but also commercially.
Stephen, before I let you go, I also want to ask you, you mentioned the risk factor and what that means for insurance costs for shipping going up. Like you said, traffic was moving at a bigger pace than we've seen, and then we had this attack. Now, surely people at Lloyd's and in boardrooms around the world are looking at this and thinking it's going to cost us more, not only to insure these vessels, but to convince the crews, the captains, the folks on the boats to actually take this risk and go through there. Do we have any kind of metric for what we think that increase is likely to be going forward, even if this truce does hold?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really hard to put a number on it right now because this is so fresh. But that being said, this really reminds me of early March after the war began, and ships were getting calls from Lloyd's or other insurers saying, hey, we're going to be off, we're going to have to set higher rates, or actually in some cases, we don't even know where the number is right now. Hold tight. We'll get back to you in a little bit. I have a feeling that might be happening at the moment. There were 2 liquefied natural gas tankers that were heading into the strait to go into the Persian Gulf. They were empty. They wanted to go pick up fuel. But in the last few days, they both turned around and are in a holding position. And while part of it could be safety, another thing as well could be the insurance that they have to pay, the people on the ship. So while we do see every one of these happen, whether it's a ship being struck or whether there's tension between the United States and Iran, you do see ships turning around. And those are all calculations that they have to make. Now, insurance rates have fallen from where we were in March, where there were attacks far more frequently, not just within the strait, but also in the region. We were hearing about, Qatar's massive liquefied natural gas facility was hit by an Iranian missile. Saudi infrastructure was hit as well. Insurance rates, as far as we understand through talking with analysts and traders, have come down, which is why you're seeing some of this movement. But there is a risk, I think, over the last few days that you could see that creep up, and it'll be really interesting what happens when Monday opens.
Steven Stepchinsky, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us from Singapore. He covers energy and commodities for us out of Asia. Thank you very much.
All right, on Wednesday, two powerful 7.2 and 7.5 magnitude earthquakes struck Venezuela, toppling buildings and severely damaging that country's main international airport. Now, as of this morning, the death toll has risen to at least 920, with nearly 3,400 more injured and many thousands missing. The U.S. Geological Survey says that with earthquakes of this size, the estimated death toll is expected to exceed 10,000.
Of course, also a first big test for acting Venezuelan President Delcy Rodriguez as it could be what makes or breaks her potential regime. For the latest on the recovery and rescue operations in Venezuela, we're joined by Bloomberg's Andrina Itriago. Ina, great to speak with you. And I want to ask you first just about the figures that we cited just a moment ago. How much credence should we give to them as we look at sort of the spread, the geographic spread of this disaster, and see the buildings that have collapsed and reports that there are many more that are in really dire shape? How likely is it that those numbers of casualties, deaths, are much higher than are being reported?
Yeah, there's a probability that they are way higher. The thing is that the international support arrived just between Thursday night and yesterday. So it wasn't until then that the rescue labor properly began. So we are expecting that number to rise considerably in the coming days, especially as the bodies are recovered from what remains of the buildings that came down. There's an estimate by the government as well that nearly 1,500 buildings or infrastructure came down with these earthquakes. So we're expecting the number to get way higher. And also the opposition has set up this website or platform where people is reporting missing persons. And by now, as of today, 7 a.m. Bogota time, the number had risen to nearly 70,000 people. So we're talking about a lot of people still missing. And well, we'll see what happens as the rescue labors unfold.
With the government in kind of this interesting status, I was reading that folks on the ground haven't seen the Venezuelan military on the ground helping clear this rebel like they might have in times before with Maduro in charge. What is the capacity of this government to do search and rescue operations, to get in there and move the rebel? Or are they really just relying on international aid at this point?
The capacity the government has is very low. Actually, like the Venezuelan opposition pointed this out yesterday in a statement. And what we saw in the first, I would say 48 hours after the earthquakes was that it was the people who were doing most of the things. Like people went to these disaster areas and they tried to start pulling others from what remained of the buildings. The capacity is very low, and yeah, they are relying very highly on this international support. What we were hearing from doctors especially is that this happened in a moment where Venezuela was already struggling or facing a deep humanitarian crisis. So yeah, this happens. The government has very low capacity to handle this. However, I must say that Venezuela government deployed troops in the La Guaira area, which was the state that was most affected. But this was more in a security way to prevent looting and other actions that might follow after an event like this.
I want to ask you lastly just about the role that the U.S. is playing here. Before I get there, let me just play a bit of sound here of Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who of course has been so integrally involved in what's happened in Venezuela over the last many months, talking about this disaster and the path forward. Let's take a listen.
I had an opportunity to talk earlier this morning with Delcy Rodriguez, the acting president. We're obviously awaiting we're already deploying search and rescue teams from Fairfax County, Virginia, and Los Angeles. There'll be some others we'll add. That's their most immediate need right now is search and rescue efforts. They have a bunch of collapsed buildings, and so they'll need a lot of help in terms of digging through that. The airport there is badly damaged, so we'll have to rely on the Department of War to deploy assets there. And then we're also helping them with some overhead imagery, especially in coastal areas where they don't have full visibility over what the damage has been and what the impact has been.
You know, he's talking about a big project there, and I think part of this larger project the U.S. has now with Venezuela. I wonder if you kind of marry these two things. Yes, U.S. aid for this disaster, but this kind of broader new tack that the U.S. is taking toward Venezuela.
Yeah, definitely. U.S. has been very involved in all of this. As Secretary of State said, they are sending 250 personnel to Venezuela right now. But it's not the first time that we're seeing this over the past months. After the U.S. capture of Nicolas Maduro, the U.S. has been deeply involved in all of Venezuelan situation. We've been seeing very top-ranked officials from the U.S. Visiting Venezuela over the past months. It's a challenge for both the U.S. Trump administration and the Delcy Rodriguez interim government, this whole situation. And it's still to see, like, analysts are waiting to see how they both handle the situation, because I think it depends. What happens now will determine definitely what happens in the next months in Venezuela.
All right, Ina Triago, thank you so much for joining us. I know you'll be keeping track of that. We may need to talk to you again soon. We appreciate you.
Appreciate it, yes. The disaster in Venezuela will be a test for U.S. relief efforts without U.S. aid. I spoke with the former administrator of that agency, former UN Ambassador Samantha Power, about the role of the U.S. on the global stage, the state of soft power, what she calls soft power suicide. Next on Bloomberg This Weekend, on Bloomberg Television, Bloomberg Radio, at Bloomberg.com, and the Bloomberg Business app. Stay with us.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Surveillance. What is the worst Fed's response mechanism to inflation that is ticking, inflecting upward, given the fact that this Fed has been incredibly dovish? Are they going to wreck the party? I mean, ultimately, it's easy to be a skeptic, but I might as well join the party and not be so, skeptical, because you're not paid to be skeptical. You're not paid to poke holes. You are paid to just go with the mob.
Have we got that breaking news whoosh that drives across the screen? Can we play that now? Sort of breaking news.
It's the job. Come on.
Bramo, I think, going to look to confirm this, but I think Bramo just turned bullish. Is that what just happened?
I think that it just doesn't pay to be skeptical. You take a look at every single different benchmark.
Okay.
I mean, it's sort of, what are we trading people? We are trading them that you cannot lose, and that seems to be the way to go.
Bulls everywhere this morning, getting very nervous following that.
Don't miss Bloomberg Surveillance, live every weekday.
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day. Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives, and that revolution is playing out in real time. From finance to defense tech, AI to entertainment, from the road to the stars. Bloomberg is bringing you the stories of companies and people that are pushing tech to new frontiers, and the politics reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech.
Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
In case you missed it on the opening trade.
We're holding our breath, and our economists put it very nicely in their recent research note. They're saying, for now, you got the support of tax refunds, so you had the fiscal support. This is running out right now. The real test for the consumer starts here.
How are you going to hold your breath for?
I'm holding my breath in two different ways. The first question is complicated.
Unpleasant.
Well, that's what you have to do as a market strategist. It's unpleasant, complicated, but also exciting, I would say. So we're holding our breath and saying, are you going to reopen that strait? Then secondly, if you don't reopen it, how long can you keep running down oil inventories to make up the shortfall? The equity market's pricing 90%. Prediction markets are saying it's a 30% probability that you reopen it by the end of June. And then if you don't get these supplies back soon, then within the next 3 months, you should start to see macro weakness, not just in Europe, not just in China, but also in the US.
Don't miss the opening trade, live every weekday.
At 9:30 a.m., the market tells you what it's really thinking.
We beat the drum to the opening bell.
With deep analysis of the forces driving the price action.
Focusing investors on what really matters.
Where the money flows, which markets are changing.
Conversations with players shaping the narrative.
Innovative growth companies gravitate to NASDAQ.
It's not just like, let's buy the Mag 7 or AI.
That's a really compelling story.
This is where your trading day begins.
And this is Open Interest.
Only on Bloomberg.
What is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets?
We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
Thank you for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Anthropic's Mythos 5 AI model, well, it's been cleared by the U.S. for wider use. Now, this comes after the company resolved concerns from the Trump administration about the technology's potential threats to national security. In a letter to Anthropic, seen by Bloomberg from Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, the clearance allows the model to be released to, quote, certain trusted partners. Well, OpenAI is also receiving pressure from the Trump administration about its new AI model. The company will roll out a preview version of GPT 5.6 to select partners whose names have been approved by the U.S. government before making it widely available in the coming weeks. In a blog post, the company said, "We don't believe this kind of government access process should become the long-term default." Well, SpaceX and Charter Communications, they've reportedly held executive-level talks about partnering on a consumer mobile phone offering. Sources telling Bloomberg Charter would run some of SpaceX's phone traffic through its ground-based internet infrastructure. Now, that move, well, it would help SpaceX get closer to becoming more of a direct-to-consumer mobile phone provider. And the competition for talent heating up in the AI space. Apple's top executive in charge of its Vision Pro headset and the company's smart glasses, well, he's leaving for OpenAI. Sources tell Bloomberg Paul Mead is set to leave Apple by next week for OpenAI's hardware unit to work on its upcoming lineup of AI-powered devices. David and Christina.
Lisa, thanks so much. Have you worn those goggles ever?
I have not. No. I heard they're pretty cool, though.
Someday.
Are you going to get a pair?
No, too expensive. I'll try them, though.
I'm sure we could expense it. We'll email the bosses.
All right, yeah, right, okay. Global humanitarian crises like the earthquake in Venezuela are leaving U.S. lawmakers questioning the Trump administration's decision to dismantle U.S. aid.
I'm more concerned that the world's richest person possibly sentenced the poorest people in the world to their death.
This week, I spoke with the former and last Senate-confirmed administrator of USAID, Ambassador Samantha Power, about the consequences of the agency's dissolution and the state of soft power.
The predictions are that 14 million lives will be lost by 2030, and we're already seeing expansions in hunger and severe malnutrition, a large number of deaths, kids who just a year and a half ago would be able to have reliable access to a mosquito bed net, now at risk of dying of a mosquito bite. No kid in 2026 on this earth should die from a mosquito bite when it is so preventable. So the death toll is growing. We see with Ebola our rapid response capacity eviscerated. There are still individuals who call themselves people who work on Ebola, but they are too few, they are too dispersed, and many of them lack the expertise that was exported when the USAID staff was terminated so abruptly. The unseen costs are equally dramatic, and that ranges from girls who are no longer getting an education because USAID was either helping support a school to do that or leveraging its other programming in health or clean energy or agriculture to push a government to move in that direction. Villages that won't be electrified. USAID, through its Power Africa program, helped connect about 150 million people to electricity. Most of that was in places that would never have been able to connect to the grid in my lifetime. pop-up solar panels, private-public partnerships that allowed things to happen at a much more accelerated pace. So the soft power suicide for the United States, I think, is pretty obvious when you pull the rug out from programming of this nature with no warning, with no regard for the human consequences of those actions. That's going to cause, to say the least, a severe trust deficit. But I think when you go behind that as just an argument and think about the families that on a Friday were able to send their female child to school and on a Monday suddenly found that that child was no longer welcome. The family member who goes to get antiretrovirals to treat HIV, which has now become a disease that you can live with thanks to George W. Bush and the PEPFAR program combating HIV around the world, able to get their meds on a Friday, showing up on a Monday, the meds still available, but the pharmacy closed because the health workers laid off because of the cuts that the Trump administration made. So it's all system failure, an all system attack, and there's not one part of human development that has been untouched by this blunder.
I hear you mentioning children several times. I was going to ask you who this has affected and is likely to affect going forward. It sounds like children are going to pay a huge cost for this.
Yeah, the 14 million prediction from The Lancet in a peer-reviewed study that are anticipated to die preventable deaths by 2030, 4.5 million of those are likely to be children under 5. And maybe one way to really bring this home is that over the last decades, every year we have seen child mortality drop every single year. And 2025, the year that USAID was dismantled, is the first year in decades where we have seen deaths of children under 5 increase. And the destruction of USAID is a huge part of that story.
What has this last year been like for you? I imagine you've had a lot of conversations with now former colleagues at USAID. What have those folks said to you, and what have their lives been like in light of this happening?
Well, thank you for asking about them. It is 15,000 people who were directly employed in some fashion by USAID all around the world. About 2/3 of the places they worked were crisis zones, so places that had suffered coups or conflicts or natural disasters. And they didn't care. They worked in those places because they saw that America's fate was connected to the fates of those communities in which they worked. They put their lives on the line, and they were spit upon by their own government. They were literally, in many cases, physically escorted out of the USAID headquarters if they were in Washington by security guards. That can't happen. If that were men and women wearing our country's uniform, military uniform, there would have been a complete uproar. The fact that they were wearing USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, with the agency mantra from the American people, somehow that meant that that uproar didn't occur. And they were denigrated and lied about, described as radical left lunatics, when what they've been doing is the nation's bidding with bipartisan support for decades.
You've had a year plus to think about this and try to process it. And I'm curious, were there signs after the election, during that transition, that this was something that the administration was weighing or intended to do, or did it catch you completely by surprise?
There were not signs of any intention among any prominent Republicans to dismantle USAID. The bipartisan support was thick. USAID was extremely earmarked, which meant that Republicans and Democrats alike had their favorite programs. They had seen those programs out in the world. They saw the connection between building lab surveillance in Democratic Republic of Congo and preventing Ebola from coming to this country. If they came from red states, members of Congress, they saw that USAID was buying $2 billion worth of American surplus farm commodities, agricultural commodities, and then providing those commodities to hungry people. They saw that farmers, many of them, felt really connected with that public service, with famine alleviation around the world. So this was Elon Musk and Doge and a handful of tech bros in a kind of fever dream, building on the shock and awe of those early days of the Trump administration more generally, but basically putting a knife through butter and then realizing that they could just go and go and go.
How much surprise do you have that Republicans, who I assume you knew before through your work, 2 White Houses and here as an academician, have behaved in this way? Has it surprised you? Have you talked to any of them about their decision to back this?
Well, initially in the early days, I had very productive, I thought, back channel, text message exchanges and phone calls with Republicans who were the biggest champions of USAID's work, and where they would reach out to me and say, okay, they're saying this, there's this claim that USAID spend this amount on this crazy program, provide me with the facts. And we had these crack teams that had come together and were turning around the facts as best we could. I should remind people that one of the first things that DOJ did as an accompaniment to trying to destroy USAID was to take down the website. So that actually abetted their campaign.
The USAID website was taken down.
The USAID website was taken down, making it hard for journalists, members of Congress, and others who wanted to present facts in the face of these lies to summon those facts. And we were so nerdy and faithful to facts that, we weren't going to do what they were doing, which is they were just making stuff up, and we weren't going to make stuff up in response. So people were, reaching out, by text message all around the world to try to, get information that could be used and that was fact-checked. Though I will say within a couple weeks, when it began to seem like more of a fait accompli, my text messages began to go unreturned. And that was crushing. I mean, these are individuals who have seen these programs. And if anything, the most vocal Republican champions, including those on the Appropriations Committee, in some of my last hearings, so in 2024, months before the dismantlement would occur, they were publicly arguing that USAID's budget should be greater, more substantial, not smaller.
See more of that interview with Samantha Power tomorrow. You can watch and listen to the entire Big Take Daily podcast at Bloomberg.com, wherever you get your podcasts. And Christina, she was talking about the way that aid, foreign aid, development aid, really had this base of bipartisan support. And something we talked about over the course of the interview is kind of the about face or the change in tack that we saw from Marco Rubio, who, as a senator for so many years, was a very fervent supporter.
Big advocate of this.
Of aid, advocated for more aid, and of course went along with what we saw in the early days of this administration. But as you could hear from her talking about this, it's still incredibly raw for her. We talked about sort of what's become of these 14,000 employees, and some here obviously in the States have found work, but those who are in the field, it's been quite disorienting and difficult to find these jobs. And I think that there's a hope on her part and others that in a new administration in the future, we could have something that resembles USAID again. But it really, not to put too fine a point on it, this was an agency that existed, and the next day didn't. Yes, there's the six-month period by which that happened, but you remember that they froze foreign aid on day one.
Essentially
of the Trump
overnight.
second term.
And it's not just, I think people forget that it wasn't just USAID, especially in Washington where I was the time this happened. There's an entire ecosystem of nonprofits that rely on and orbit around USAID funding. And I mean, in my little condo building of 30 people, 3 people directly lost their jobs after this because they were tied to associations, one for democracy promotion, one for legal things, and I forget what the other was, but that relied on USAID funding through one way or another. And it's popular with a lot of Republicans, as we were talking about during the break, because it does fund a lot of Christian Catholic organizations that are doing charity work, Catholic charities, Lutheran charities. They changed the law a couple years ago. They could get funding through USAID in a lot of places around the world.
And as you heard her talking about this crisis with Ebola, I mean, something that really stood out to me, which I'll underline here, is as you and I are talking about it, just how not having USAID sites in places like DRC, where there would be experts who could really jump on an outbreak like this one, has handicapped the response so much that something that you could have measured in hours before you're now measuring in days or weeks. And as we've talked about over these last few weeks on the show with a number of guests who have experience in public health, just a huge setback for a lot of those folks.
And even the Venezuela story, I mean, we have pictures of those task force guys going, the search and rescue crews. Anytime I've covered a disaster, that's always run out of USAID. And I was curious this morning, I don't know how they're deployed now, because that was always a USAID operation. So, all right, David, it's a good interview. I'm going to watch the whole thing when I get home. All right, will there be a federal interest rate hike this year, maybe before the election? The new data and what to expect in next week's job report. That's straight ahead on Bloomberg This Weekend.
investors, top executives, global innovators. Join me for in-depth conversations with the biggest newsmakers on the day's top stories. Insight with Haslinda Amin, only on Bloomberg.
In case you missed it, on the Pulse.
It's a $75 billion IPO, the largest in history. I think it presages the beginning of a pretty sizable wave of IPOs, which we're excited about. And I also think it shows you that the capital markets, led by the U.S. capital markets, but the global capital markets are demonstrating a willingness to finance this AI infrastructure build and this build in space, which is quite exciting.
Don't miss the Pulse, live every weekday.
Good morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Welcome back to the opening trade.
It's Bloomberg Money.
This is the Asia Trade.
This is Wall Street Week. Welcome to Balance of Power.
You're watching Bloomberg Deals. Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend.
This is Bloomberg Television. It's Jobs Day, and Bloomberg has the report under surveillance.
Things have started to pick up in this economy based on the jobs number.
But there is a lot of concern about why the labor market is not keeping pace with what we're seeing right now in the AI space.
This Thursday, Jonathan, Lisa, Anne-Marie, and Mike will bring you crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed.
The unsaid thing is that we're basically at full employment.
Apparently the labor market right now, not a problem.
The June Jobs Report, Thursday on Bloomberg.
In case you missed it, on Balance of Power.
Are you worried about this type of rhetoric? We're now looking at an indefinite extension to the ceasefire.
I think patience and perseverance are what we need here. And bear in mind that the idea that somehow after 47 years of entrenching itself in power, that what the president first said 4 to 6 weeks was never realistic. And it's 8 weeks now. It's still not realistic. The issue, I think, is whether we can take back control of the Strait in order to allow Gulf Arab oil out onto international markets. And remember, some of that oil is going out through pipelines in Saudi Arabia and the UAE in any event. But we prohibit the exportation of Iranian oil, open the rest of the Strait to get the Arab oil out, calm the markets down. I think we should be prepared to take the time necessary to overthrow the regime. We'll regret it if we let them up and find out later.
Don't miss Balance of Power, live every weekday.
Welcome to the world of decentralized finance. Bloomberg is covering all things crypto, the people, the transactions, and the technology. Bloomberg Crypto, Tuesdays only on Bloomberg.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives, and that revolution is playing out in real time. From finance to defense tech, AI to entertainment, from the road to the stars. Bloomberg is bringing you the stories of companies and people that are pushing tech to new frontiers, and the politics reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech.
Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
Making money isn't about drowning in emotions. It's about understanding what's actually happening. Markets are the best way to glean signal from noise, and that is what we try to do every morning. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Power Players is back to take a look under the hood of the business of Formula One.
Hi, I'm here to see Pierre Gasly.
Welcome to my workplace.
Do you feel pressure?
Massive pressure.
Ferrari is the best example that we can be very proud of the past to look after the future.
From the iconic brand setting the standard,
Oh boy.
can you imagine Ferrari without racing?
No, and I say no, no, no.
To the newcomers forging ahead.
I grew up my whole life racing against the boys.
This global phenomenon continues to chart new territory.
This was a tennis court 8 days ago.
I can't even believe that. And the speed of the business has never moved faster.
My career might stop, but I'll still be driving some.
Yeah. Probably very fast.
Yeah.
This is so exciting!
This season, we're along for the ride.
People ask me all the time, what is the key to being a really good investor? And I tell them it's to surround yourself with and work with the best investors you can find. On Bloomberg Wealth, I'm going to take you to meet the greatest investors in the world, the people that I would like to have managing my money.
As investors, we are always worried about the issue of the moment. Success is about time in the market as opposed to timing the market.
you for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Apple is pressing the White House for approval to purchase memory chips from a blacklisted Chinese company. It's looking to control chip costs. The Financial Times says while Apple isn't barred from using CXMT as a supplier, the iPhone maker is seeking guarantees that the company won't be added to the U.S. entity list, and that would impose stiff licensing restrictions. Well, the PGA Tour continues at TPC River Highlands in Connecticut, topping the leaderboard. Scotty Scheffler at 16 under par. That's followed by Victor Hovland at 14 under par, and Akshay Bhatia and Eric Cole stand at 12 under par. In the World Cup yesterday, a lot of action. France topped Norway 4-1. Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia tied at 0 apiece. Egypt and Iran tied at 1 apiece. Senegal, they defeated Iraq 5-0. Spain topped Uruguay 1-0, and Belgium beat New Zealand 5-1. Today, well, we got some more action. Croatia takes on Ghana. Colombia battles Portugal. Algeria, they go up against Austria. Panama plays England. Congo battles Uzbekistan. And Jordan, they play Argentina. And an heir to the Walmart fortune acquiring a minority stake in the NBA's Chicago Bulls. The deal with Lucas Walton and his wife, well, it also includes part of the United Center. That's where the Bulls play their home games. Terms of the agreement were not disclosed. The Waltons, they'll buy stakes from existing limited partners. Now, in case you're wondering, Lucas Walton, he's the grandson of Walmart founder Sam Walton. He is worth about $49 billion.
Okay,
nice
then.
To have family members in the right place.
Yes, nice to have $49 billion. All right. Thanks, Lisa. Federal interest rates could soon be on the rise. That was the message Friday from Minneapolis Fed President Neil Kashkari as the central bank tries to tamp down inflation. But how exactly they're going to do that? Well, that's the bigger question.
The thing we wrestle with is we could move interest rates up as high as we need to get inflation down quickly. That will cause a lot of harm to the economy. That'll cause a lot of harm to the labor market and to employment. And so how do we get inflation back down in a reasonable period of time without doing a lot of damage to the labor market? And that's the challenge that we're wrestling with.
Neil Kashkari speaking with our colleague Lisa Abramowitz at the Aspen Ideas Festival. Joining us now is Enda Curran, Bloomberg News U.S. economy reporter. Enda, great to see you as always. Let's pick up on the comments there from the Minneapolis Fed president. We learned from that interview that the spike, that where we see inflation at has prompted him to pencil in one hike over the course of this year. Where does he fit into the panoply, the pantheon of Fed policymakers right now, and sort of how much in the mode is he of kind of where you think this is headed when it comes to Fed policy?
I think he's kind of speaking for zeitgeist right now, David. We know that half of the policymakers on the Fed's committee think interest rates could go higher this year. The other half probably on hold. The challenge, though, is, as Mr. Kashkari said, I mean, the Fed are trying to grapple with, obviously, we all know what's happened, prices because of the energy shock due to the Iran war. The question is, A, how long lasting will that be? You know, we now have, obviously, ebb and flow in the Iran news, but broadly speaking, there's expected to be a deal there that will impact energy prices. That could take pressure off inflation. So the Fed have to consider that. And then they have to think about how broad-based is the inflation story at the moment? How much of this energy shock has spilled over into the cost of other goods and services? Economists there differ. They say it hasn't spilled over that broadly yet, but they do say it's not just energy. Keep an eye on the costs linked to the AI boom. Keep an eye on housing and rental costs. That hasn't gone away. And pockets of services sector, inflation still remains sticky. So it's a pretty tricky one for the Fed trying to juggle if they have to move and when they should move.
So I think you mentioned some of the factors, but when you look at core inflation, which is the Fed's preferred gauge, it's at a 3-year high. Why are prices still going up?
Yeah, so the Fed likes to look at what's called a PCE index. And as you mentioned, that came out this week, year on year, 4.1%. The Fed's target is 2%. I mean, that's basic arithmetic. That's way out of bounds of where the central bank wants it to be. And that's why they are worried. Now, within the PCE, there's certain things that do skew that number. Portfolio management fees are included in that. And that's because of the stock market boom. That's obviously lifting things as well. So there are different economists who would say, look, PCE isn't capturing everything that's going on. But no matter what, when you consider the conventional inflation data that we got for the month of May, and when you consider this more kind of specialized number that the Fed likes to look at, all of the indicators are suggesting there is real price pressure in the system. Prices have gone up. It's not all because of the energy story. It's not all because of oil story. But the question is, in the second half of the year, is this going to be as bad as it gets? Does it stabilize, or does it broaden out to the economy? And then a lot of people will be worried pretty quickly.
Let's move to the other side of the dual mandate. Yes, the Fed is concerned about price stability, also concerned about the labor market. This is something that you asked the Fed chair about at his first press conference just a couple of days ago. Let's take a listen to what he had to say in reply to your question about the state of the labor market.
The committee thought that the labor markets were stable. There were some people around the committee who thought that it was trending better than that. Trends matter more than data points. What's happening over 3 or 6 months matters more than any one data point, any one data release. And I'd say the jobs data has been moving in a good direction.
And what have we heard from policymakers since then? Sort of what do the data tell us about the labor market as we look ahead to this jobs numbers next week? And I should note, Neil Kashkari said to our colleague Lisa Abramowitz, I've definitely seen what I would call signs of life in the labor market.
We've had a big change of tone on the jobs market, David. At the beginning of the year, these Fed officials and, everybody else were making the point that the jobs market seems pretty soft, right? People are complaining they can't get work. If you lose a job, it's very difficult. And the official data said that last year was the worst year for job creation since 2003. Here we are now mid-year, at the midpoint of 2026, and for the last few months, the jobs data has been very strong. To your point, we get numbers next on Friday for the month of June. We're expecting about 115,000 jobs created in a month. Unemployment rate holding steady at 4.3%, which is still historically low. If those numbers come in around that ballpark, that's a good set of numbers. Now, people will argue some of it might be the World Cup effect. Obviously, local governments have been hiring lots of people for security and leisure and all of that. That is part of it. But the hiring recovery has been somewhat broad-based since the start of the year. Even the manufacturing sector has seen a pickup in employment. Now, to be clear, nobody's saying the jobs market is suddenly tight or on fire or it's back to where it was a few years ago. The point is it has at the very least stabilized and possibly even improving. And I think that's the point that, Fed Chairman Walsh is making. It's starting to look like a trend, and the trend is heading in the right direction.
I want to talk to you about Kevin Walsh. So obviously this was his first big outing. He came to the podium. We heard from him for the first time. But his job this time, policymakers made it a bit easy for him because they were unanimous in their consensus that rates should stay where they are for now. When you look ahead, about half the policymakers, as you mentioned, are predicting an increase, a 1-point spike by the end of the year. Is it going to be hard for him to maintain consensus the next time around? And what does this do for a guy whose mandate from the president is cut, cut, cut?
It's going to get tricky for him. I mean, right here, right now, Chairman Walsh came out and was surprised a lot of observers. He was very clear-eyed. Price stability is number one for the central bank, and they are worried about inflation. So that was a stock standard message, and everyone took it on board. But to your point, as the months go by, if inflation pressures remain where they are, and the public are complaining about it, and business people are complaining about it, then there will be a lot of pressure on the Fed to raise interest rates. And at that point, whatever Chairman Walsh's own views are, at that point, that's when the economic world will collide with the political world. I mean, it seems at the moment, the White House, relative to what was going on with the Fed under Chair Powell, the White House is kind of on best behavior. Everyone's dancing around each other a little bit. Chairman Walsh certainly has some kind of a grace period. But it's not hard to imagine this scenario, given the past commentary from the president, where as we get closer to the election season, and if an interest rate hike really is on the cards, well, obviously that's, as I say, it's where the economics and politics are going to collide, and that will certainly be a moment of potential tension between the executive branch and the Fed, I think.
We're going to see this in stark relief, I think, a little later this week in Portugal. The Sintra Economic Forum is going to take place, the ECB Central Banking Forum. I believe Kevin Walsh is going to be there alongside the governors of the Bank of Canada, England, and the president of the ECB. You didn't get it. Are you going, Enda? You didn't get the nod to go to Portugal in the summer?
Wait, I want to go to Portugal.
We all do. I think none of us got the invite, I'm sad to say. Anyways, that's coming up on Wednesday, and Bloomberg will have coverage, of course, of that forum that kicks off, I think, in earnest on Tuesday, so Tuesday and Wednesday of this coming week. Enda Curran, Thank you very much, as always. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much. All right, you can't put a price on happiness, but you can put a price, an increasingly large one, on your pets. Some new numbers on just how much we're spending on our furry little friends.
You can take us with you no matter where you go. You can watch us on Bloomberg Television, listen to us on Bloomberg Radio, stream the show live on the Bloomberg Business app. Wherever you are, we are also there. Sounds ominous. It isn't. It's Bloomberg This Weekend.
Oh, hello there. Just wanted to say, Primer is back. We've been scouring the frontiers of science and technology to help explain the difference between the next gold rush and whatever this thing is. And in season 2, we're upping the stakes. More danger.
Now that is some high-grade uranium mineralization.
We used to have a stable climate on this Earth. Right now, we do not.
More science.
We're pushing the envelope of technology in multiple directions: software, hardware, chemistry, physics.
The cable is like very cold.
And more CEOs that can nail the photo shoot.
Hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars are at stake.
While the problems are economic, the solutions are too.
And yes, we will be talking about AI.
There is a lot of humanoid hype out there.
But our future doesn't run on hype. It runs on innovation. Watch season 2 on all these lovely channels.
Today's CFOs are reshaping the C-suite. Bloomberg's chief future officer shines a spotlight on these dynamic leaders. Furniture and home goods retailer Wayfair has long been a heavy hitter in e-commerce. Now it's branching out into brick and mortar stores, and CFO Kate Gulliver loves the challenge.
It is pretty wild to be almost 25 years into the business and be launching an entirely new channel.
Watch Chief Future Officer only on Bloomberg.
My old mentor, Roger Staubach, who told me when I transitioned, football will never leave you, but you need to leave it.
Wow.
Everyone has a dream, and a lot of dreams are, my dream is to play football and play professional football, and you get the dream comes true, but it is going to end. And the day it ends, the day before it ends, you're one of the best in the world. Great. The next day you wake up, that's gone. What are you great at? And the truth is nothing, right? I'm not great at anything else.
I talk about it all the time, Steve, is this whole idea of it's not from penthouse to penthouse. And what I mean by that is you played for 15, 20 years and you're in the penthouse. That doesn't mean that you come to the business world and you're going to be in the penthouse. You don't start on the third floor or the lobby. You actually have to start in the basement.
Welcome back to Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm David Gura with Christina Ruffini, pet parent to Brutus. Joins us here on set.
Special segment.
As well. Americans' pet obsession is expanding beyond traditional preventative care. Over the next decade, the U.S. pet market expected to grow to more than $250 billion from about $150 billion today.
And I'm only spending about $1 billion
Just
of
a
that
fraction
on,
of that.
on my tiny
Yes,
dog.
yes.
All right, Bloomberg Intelligence consumer staples analyst Diana Rosera Pena is here. What is the future of pet retail? Is it online shopping? Is it traditional stores? I will admit I do both. We have this fabulous quite overpriced soccer jersey that I impulse purchased
Show
for
that
Brutus.
off, if
Let's
you
see.
would.
I'm not sure which. Okay, see.
Yes.
I dropped my dog. This is an impulse purchase, but there's a lot of targeted ads online. There's a lot of Instagram ads. Where are people buying for their pets the most?
I mean, it really depends on, how young you are, your income level. It's all across. The pet mania continues in the U.S. for sure. So it's really interesting to see.
Sorry, go ahead.
No,
you go ahead.
Do we know, is there a certain category that's more likely to do, like if you're younger, you're more likely to shop online, if you're older, you're more likely to pick it up in person, or is it all, it's just across the board?
So actually, younger consumers are more likely to go to pet specialty retailers such as Petco and PetSmart.
Okay.
They, in our survey, they actually did about, they said that they were going to these formats about 30% compared to like a little lower for e-commerce. And I think it's because there is that one-stop shop alternative that they seek, particularly if you're a young pet parent. You probably want to get into the grooming and like your accessories and food and all of that.
We do have a lot of accessories.
Is this a term you use, pet parent?
I don't. I stick to human. I say I'm his human, but I know most people say pet parent. Yes.
When it comes to online spending, sort of what's driving those sales and that growth? I think about sort of the ads, you mentioned them, like get on some recurring plan. We have cats. For cat food, for get on this plan, we're going to get them every month. Is that a main driver for those businesses?
So AutoShip, which is something that Chewy offers, is not necessarily a big driver. In our survey, we found out that about 18% of respondents think that is very important. However, over 60% of respondents said that they like free shipping, the convenience, and also they're not going to say no to coupons and the like. So there's a lot of, it seems to be, while people prioritize their pets, there seems to be that underlying drive of value-driven behavior. So you can see that online as well.
And when you look at the big retailers, how is it split up between, I guess it would be Amazon, Petco, and Chewy? Are those the major players?
Yeah. So Amazon is actually from what we saw, it was about 50% of the respondents said that they are going to, Amazon. Chewy is also a high contender, as well as Walmart. It really depends on, what your priority is. I will guess that for Amazon, it's more of, you're a Prime member, you want to buy for, every week you have your box of things, and then you're buying stuff from Amazon.
You've surveyed a lot about sort of multi-pet households. Of course, there's only room for one Brutus in the Ruffini
only one Brutus
apartment. But this is a trend as well. I mean, this is an important driver of growth and spending too.
Yeah. So obviously, for multi-pet households, we find out that they spend about $300 a month compared to like $200.
How much do you guys spend? Do you spend $300 a month?
No, I'd say like 200 probably, 150 to 200.
Okay, that's significant.
Yeah.
Yes, and there's always, that is very important for the producers as well as the retailers, because it gives them a little bit more alternative to for them to visit the store or buy more. So it's definitely profitable for them.
You guys also asked what people were spending money on, you also asked what people were concerned about. And this year you asked a new question. And what was that? And it's like off the charts.
Yes. So the first time that we asked about anxiety, and it seems that pet anxiety seems to be something of concern for pet parents.
Brutus, are you anxious?
He doesn't seem anxious.
I don't think he seems that anxious. No, he's fine.
I look at that, I see anxiety and I see obesity as two of the main drivers there.
Yes.
So people are spending money on what? They're buying sedatives? No, GLP-1, is that true? Oh my God, peptides.
Not yet. We just did a whole thing on peptides.
Peptides are the new rage.
But there's a higher concern for putting their pets on a diet and making them as comfortable as possible. And this is, a big opportunity for obviously pharmaceuticals as well as, specialty foods and the like. So it's a boon for those.
The world in which you're waiting, you do all this stuff? No. He's not obese.
He's not obese. He runs, he's very calm now, but he runs like a maniac. He burns it all off. But you guys also talk about wellness visits and how you said around 17% of dogs and 29% of cats are missing their annual wellness visits.
We don't do it.
We don't either.
I feel bad about that.
But vets are getting so expensive. I was just talking to some other pet owners in the park about this, and we were saying like the mission creep on vet visits, and they want to see you 4 times a year, and it's $800 each time, and so people are just not going now?
Yeah, exactly. They're prioritizing other things. And that is, I would say, food companies are doing a lot of good marketing on that, because they are trying to convince pet parents that, hey, if you feed your dog good quality food, which which usually comes at a higher price, then you can probably be comfortable skipping a few doctor visits. If that is true or not, it really depends on who you ask.
That's not part of your survey.
Yes, exactly. I mean, we have talked to vets, and they mentioned that, food, while they think it, for dieting and the like, it's a good thing. It doesn't necessarily, cure any of the issues that we have seen with vets.
Wow. All right. Thank you so much for joining us. Diana Rosero-Pena, thank you so much. And the rest of the survey can be on Bloomberg.com, right?
Correct.
You get all your parent information right there.
There you go. We're coming up on 9 a.m. in New York. Our conversation with Alan Armstrong, Senator from Oklahoma, is just ahead. Stay with us.
Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend, live from New York with David Gura, Christina Ruffini, and Lisa Mateo. The latest headlines, key analysis, big interviews, and the stories that hit home on your days off.
Welcome to Bloomberg This Weekend. We're coming to you live from our world headquarters here in New York. I'm Christina Ruffini.
I'm David Gura with Lisa Mateo. It is Saturday, June the 27th, and I hate to start a show saying there's a lot of confusion and uncertainty, but that is the main story here on this Saturday morning as we look at the Strait of Hormuz, where there's been another attack on a shipping vessel. We had one of these earlier in the week as well, and of course, when this happens, yes, there's the prospect of retaliation, which we saw over the course of the week as well. Also, just kind of a little agita that develops among the companies that run and own these ships, wondering about whether or not it's safe for transit because of attacks like these, because of the prospect of mines, and going back to uncertainty. That's really what they're all wrapped up.
And international maritime organizations are saying there's a heightened risk in the area, but as we were talking about in the last hour, ships are still trying to get through, mostly out, but some going in as well.
Yeah.
So we're going to go to Lisa right now to catch you up on the headlines this hour.
You got it. And rescue crews, they are racing against time in Venezuela. You have teams from across the world. Well, they've arrived in the country to help find people trapped in the rubble. That comes after two powerful earthquakes killed more than 900 people. And the powerful 7.2, 7.5 earthquakes, they struck within a minute of each other on Wednesday evening, knocking out power, toppling buildings, also severely damaging the country's main international airport. Tens of thousands are people still missing. Tropical storm Mikala is bringing heavy rain to many parts of Japan. The country's meteorological agency, well, it warned high risks of landslides in certain parts of the Kanto region. The agency had issued a level 4 warning advising people to evacuate from dangerous areas. The nation's largest wildfire, well, it's expanded its reach as crews in Utah continue to battle new blazes. The National Weather Service, it says dry, windy conditions, well, that provided fuel for more fires across the western U.S. Utah now restricting fireworks and declared a state of emergency ahead of 4th of July celebrations. Well, to the conflict in the Middle East, where Bahrain said it had targeted by Iran and a ship in the Strait of Hormuz, it was also struck. Now, this comes as Tehran and Washington, they trade accusations that the other had violated the ceasefire. Iran now claims that it had targeted U.S. sites in the Persian Gulf following U.S. strikes on Iranian missile storage and radar installations on Friday. Now, those were in response to an Iranian drone attack on a container ship in Hormuz on Thursday. Now, this all happening after oil plunged 4%, with West Texas Intermediate trading below $70 a barrel yesterday. President Donald Trump said gas prices will fall considerably.
Over the past few weeks, the stock market and your 401ks skyrocketed upward like pretty much nobody's seen before. Oil prices are plummeting downward. We're going to be at $2.50 gasoline.
Well, in other news, supporters of the Lebanese militant group Hezbollah, they protested in the streets after Beirut. After Israel and Lebanon, they signed a framework agreement with the U.S. It was described as a first step toward peace. The agreement does not include Hezbollah and prompted one of the group's officials in Lebanon to warn of civil war. David and Christina.
Lisa, thank you very much.
All right, risk and uncertainty are not things any business owner likes to deal with, and ship owners are not immune from that. So right now, UK maritime trade operations are advising vessels to proceed with caution through the Strait of Hormuz after a tanker was hit by an unidentified projectile this morning. The International Maritime Organization had already paused evacuation operations after an Iranian drone struck a vessel on Thursday. Until then, nearly 2,500 seafarers had been cleared from the trade route.
This latest news comes as the U.S. renewed strikes on Iran on Friday, just hours after the Senate reversed course on limiting President Trump's power in the Iran war in an effort to placate the president after an extremely tense lunch on Capitol Hill. Trump walked into the building and has already sparked frustration on his part and had a tense meeting, a tense luncheon there on Capitol Hill. Post on social media, he refused to sign a housing bill that was passed by a near unanimous vote until his voting act also passes Congress. Senator Alan Armstrong of Oklahoma was at that Senate Republican lunch with the president, and we asked him about the housing bill as well as the president's interactions with lawmakers on Capitol Hill.
I think that was obviously a surprise to everybody, and I think caught everybody off guard there a little bit. I think, clearly the president's trying to make a strong statement about how important Save America Act is to him personally, and I think he certainly got his point across on that.
There was this meeting that followed with the president, and I would love your readout on what transpired there. We've heard that Senator Cassidy was the subject of a great deal of anger from the president. What was the mood in that room? What did you hear from the president about what he wants to have happen here for that bill to get signed into law?
Yeah, I think he just continues to express the importance of getting our voting here, something that everybody can trust and be dependent on. And I think that's obviously very important to him. But, I'm not going to make any comments on what exactly went on in the room. But obviously that's very important to the president. He continues to press on that. And but it's a private conversation for good reason, and I think we should have more. Frankly, I think there ought to be more of those private conversations and working out differences rather than letting them work their way out into the public.
You said the president got his point across that this voting act is really important to him, but this housing act was really important to Republicans, especially Republicans who are trying to run in tight races come the fall, because one of the things that voters say over and over again when asked they're focused on, it's these kitchen table issues, and housing has gotten so expensive in this country. Are you disappointed that the bill didn't get passed?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of important work that we need to be doing. Permitting reform is obviously something I think is actually more important than any of those issues that we've been talking about, because it's something that's really holding our nation back. It's a huge tax against our economy. And it really is very crucial to our future to be able to get back to building things here with certainty, with lower costs, and being able to put capital to work in our country to power our future. And so I would just say, yes, there's a lot of important things that need to get done. And this is a place where people obviously express what they think is most important to them. And certainly that's what the president was doing.
Tell us a bit what you've heard from your constituents, from Oklahomans, about housing in particular. So, Christina, bring up the fact that affordability is such a big issue here going into the midterms. What are you hearing from your constituents about the need for progress? Yes, on permitting reform, but just on affordable housing more broadly.
Yeah, I would say that's not a front and center issue in Oklahoma. We have a very low cost of living in Oklahoma, and our governor is, Governor Stitt's done a great job of making Oklahoma a place of low cost of living. And things that people do, that things like blocking infrastructure and raising people's utility costs are actually things that we can do without spending money, without making tax breaks. One of the things I think is most interesting to me about the housing bill is that in the housing bill, some of the key elements of it, we're doing NEPA waivers. So in other words, waiving the NEPA laws that is all about our permitting reform. You saw that same thing in the CHIPS Act. So rather than actually fixing the problem and dealing with permitting reform, we keep putting on gloves to fix a leaky pin as it relates to our permitting process. And to me, that was a really stark issue for me on the housing bill. But even getting affordable housing is being impacted by how litigated all of our permitting processes have become here in the U.S.
Well, I know another big cost is energy, and you are trying to address that and some of these issues in a new bill you're proposing. You want to run us through that? I mean, I know you have a lot of experience in the private sector when it comes to energy. What are you trying to get Washington to do from somebody who's been out there in the trenches where bottom lines and profits do actually matter?
Yeah, you know, I've watched this for 40 years in my career on the private side, and I've just seen it get worse and worse and worse. Now, listen, for a company like the Williams companies, where I was the CEO, that has a lot of the big incumbent pipelines, has the nation's largest pipeline, when you're the incumbent and it's hard to build new stuff, that's actually not a very bad business environment. But I think looking at it long term, realizing that you're just raising the price to consumers more and more, ultimately that's not a good thing for our country, certainly not a good thing for the consumers. And so it's one of the reasons that I actually took this role. In fact, it's the primary reason I took this role, was to try to do my best to kind of raise concern over how much our processes are costing the American people. People will get upset about their utility prices, and everybody wants to blame it on something other than the fact that our political processes today stand in the way of us being able to build infrastructure and connect abundant resources that we are very blessed with here in the U.S. to the consumer. If we had too much infrastructure, it would be the infrastructure companies, the pipeline companies, the power transmission companies, they would be competing and having to lower their prices to be able to deliver that product. But as it is, we've got bottlenecked and constrained infrastructure, and that's actually what's raising the price to consumers.
I definitely want to ask you about the talks that are underway between the U.S. and Iran, but let me get into them by asking about what the president said a couple of times over the course of the week. That is, he's been very critical of gasoline companies for those prices not coming down as fast as we've seen oil prices come down. And I wonder what you would say to him, what you would say to somebody who maybe doesn't know how this works, why we're not seeing the kind of diminution in gas prices as quickly as certainly the president wants. There's a long lag time here.
Yeah, and there always is. It's the way the market works. It's not like if price of oil goes down, you know, in one day, that the person that bought that gasoline, the person that bought the oil to run it through the refinery, to then put it in a tank, to then take it through their pipelines, to then go to a storage facility there in the local area, and then finally wind up when you squeeze on the handle at the pump. That's a long, long transit time. And so it's not like that the price of that product just immediately gets lowered at the place that you're delivering the pumping. In the retail gasoline business, it's called the shelf. And so you have prices stay up for a little bit longer. It's a profitable time for the retail gasoline, but guess what? On the way up, on the other direction, they have to bear the other side of that coin. So, I mean, you can track this. This is nothing new and nothing unusual to see retail gasoline and diesel prices lag the price of oil. In fact, it would be very unusual if that happened, frankly.
But shouldn't the president know that, or at least have someone who can explain it to him? Do you want to go over to the White House and maybe let him know that this is how this goes?
Yeah, I think, the president's got great advisors like Chris Wright in the House, in his cabinet that certainly understand that. And I think he's been working hard to get the Strait of Hormuz open, and he's just wanting to see that immediate gratification of that showing up. But it's the same thing, honestly, it's the same thing with the permitting issues. There's not immediate gratification around fixing permitting reform. You have to fix it, and then you have to let the infrastructure get built over time to see the benefit of it. But I do think it is something that he's been fighting hard to get the Strait of Hormuz open. He's thrilled to see oil prices coming down as hard as they are, and now he's wanting to see it show up at the pump.
Speaking of permitting, you were talking about infrastructure and getting more energy and more of these facilities online. The administration has done a lot to take away some of the regulatory hurdles for these new nuclear startups being worked out. These like kind of startup-y, I don't know, nuclear and startup don't really seem to go together in my mind, so I don't think I can get the sentence out. But I know that there has been some controversy about some of these deregulations, but also feasibility and whether or not this is really the best place to invest this, because so far, none of these startups are anywhere close to production and won't be for quite a few years. Is that where the administration, where the country should be focusing when it comes to new forms of energy, or are there quicker, simpler ways to get that grid up and running faster?
Well, I think we need to be focused on any and all kinds of energy, and I think we should never stop trying to bring innovation forward to be able to have long-term sources of energy. So things like fusion, which is not what the small modular reactors are, but long-term, we as a country have the ability to invest in research and develop. And frankly, the old model that we have of the large reactors is a very expensive, very risky process. You can certainly ask the Southern companies with their big project in Volatility, which was the last big nuclear facility brought online. And it's a very difficult regulatory process. I think the effort that's going on that I think is really worthy of the U.S. paying attention to and trying to invest in is how do we take the energy from nuclear and make it simpler to actually be able to extract that energy, extract that heat, and make it commercial. The old way we've done things is big, complex, super expensive, and we certainly should. And I think the industry really got set back hard after some incidents and really was kind of back on its heels, and nobody really was willing to invest in innovation looking forward because it had such a bad name, and it kind of really crippled the ability to invest in innovation. So yes, I think we should be investing in innovation there, and I think we ought to be continue to pursue anything. Energy is such a vital part of any economy, and we would be foolish, I think, not to be investing in research to be able to bring that energy to us at a much lower cost in the future.
Just a last question here. You're about to embark on a recess that I think goes until July the 13th. You, of course, are not going to be in the Senate for a very long period of time. You're filling a term that was vacated by Mark Wayne Mullen, who's now the Secretary of Homeland Security. I'm going to characterize you as kind of a single-issue senator in the short tenure that you have there. You're really focused on this issue of permitting reform. I'm curious, these few months into your tenure, that's not going to be a very long tenure, what surprised you about the place in terms of how difficult it is to make progress, how hard it is to get advancements on the issue or the issues that you care about?
Yeah, well, I hope that what I'm experiencing is an anomaly that's associated with being right ahead of the midterms, because there certainly seems to be a lot of effort just to make sure that the current administration and the Republican Party in general is not successful in getting productive things done. That's unfortunate, but that's certainly one of the things that surprised me the most is kind of how low on the list it is from a party's perspective, and particularly Democratic Party leadership in particular. In this case, how much their focus is on just making sure nothing productive gets done. And I really don't come at that like you probably think I would as an Oklahoma Republican. I am actually very moderate, and I always think we should always put our country first, well ahead of our parties. And but it's been kind of shocking to me to see how low on the list there what's best for our country is in the list of considerations in those debates.
All right, Senator Armstrong, thank you so much. Nice to see you again, sir.
Thank you. Nice to see you all as well.
Interesting perspective there from the junior senator from Oklahoma. Again, serving just a few more months in that job as he fills the seat.
Right, he's an appointee. He's not allowed to run again.
But, worth pointing out, Republican majority in the Senate. And I think there's a case to be made here that a lot of the lack of things happening comes from the leadership in the Republican Party as well. And from the president, there's been a lot of discord among Republicans that the president has been clear about his objectives.
Correct, and disagreement between leadership and the president, especially this week.
Great to hear from the senator. Thank you again.
Appreciate you coming on. All right, President Trump meeting with defense executives at the White House this week. What he's asking for as the conflict with Iran nears the 4-month mark. That's straight ahead on Bloomberg This Weekend.
As an exchange, what can you do to make it more attractive to be a publicly traded company?
Talk to our customers. We spend a lot of time with our listed companies, listening to their concerns, and then act as an advocacy group for those companies to allow a company to tell their story in the most efficient way possible and reward them for the good disclosures that they are making in the market.
Is there any sort of financial innovation that you could drive to get more companies to list? Tokenization has come up.
Well, we did announce our tokenization initiative earlier this year. We already built the technology, we've already done a variety of proof of concepts. It allows for instantaneous settlement 24/7, but it is going to be a platform that runs in parallel to our more traditional exchanges.
Trading day is about to start.
And you're already looking for that edge.
The opening trade brings you everything you need to know as markets open across Europe.
I'm Guy Johnson.
I'm Anna Edwards.
And I'm Tom McKenzie.
This is your opening trade.
Only on Bloomberg.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Tech Asia.
Humanoids are particularly interesting for many reasons. One is that they can actually go into regular everyday environments, which were designed for humans. The other reason from the machine learning perspective is that humanoids have the shape of humans. So perhaps we can learn from humans doing different tasks and transfer that onto humanoids.
Don't miss Bloomberg Tech Asia every month.
Anything we do in Africa is going to be more risky than the US. I think the approach we want to take is how are we being compensated for that risk? And one of those is obviously going to be a valuation question. In our minds, valuation is a lot more attractive in Africa, even if we adjust for some of those Africa risks that a lot of Western investors see. So yes, in a lot of ways, you take some of those models that, as I said, might be more asset medium or asset heavy. There might be some more inherent risks. However, if we're saying we're adding some risk because of that kind of model, but we're now solving a core problem as opposed to maybe a nice to have solution in Africa, that might actually offset it. Where if you're solving something that people really absolutely need and can't live without, in a way that then that's a lot less risky. So again, we'd encourage investors to have a less binary view. In other words, the US isn't risky, Africa is risky. That's going to lead to a lot of complications down the road.
Mind being called an ideological lunatic or a bunch of left-wing nut jobs?
You know, I've been called worse things than that.
23andMe, I think, is so incredibly valuable. We're coming back.
What magazines were you reading as a kid?
I don't think I was reading magazines until I was in them.
So is it Paradise Ahead or Gattaca?
Maybe somewhere in the middle.
When news breaks,
a redhead across the Bloomberg terminal.
Bloomberg has you covered.
Trump's global tariffs are struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court.
For all the context and clarity you need.
There's going to be now tons of tariff headlines until midterm elections.
Hear it first on Bloomberg.
Thanks for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Former National Security Advisor John Bolton appeared in court Friday. He pleaded guilty to unlawfully retaining national defense information. The government had accused him of keeping extensive notes on sensitive information to potentially use in a 2020 book he wrote that detailed his time in the White House and his belief that President Trump was unfit for the presidency. A sentencing hearing that is scheduled for October 28th. Apollo co-founder Leon Black testified before the House Oversight Committee, saying he never abused women and was never blackmailed by Jeffrey Epstein. Chairman James Comer issued 2 subpoenas to Black. And Federal Reserve Bank of Minneapolis President Neil Kashkari says that the wave of AI investment could keep interest rates higher than they were before the AI boom. Kashkari was speaking on a panel at the Aspen Ideas Festival yesterday.
The Fed is going to need to understand that, and then we're going to need to set rates above or below that elevated neutral rate. So it probably means that interest rates that the Fed does set will be higher than they were before as we go through this build out.
Interesting insight. So at the festival tomorrow, Richmond Fed President Tom Barkin, he speaks on a panel about the future of economic mobility. More to come. David and Christina.
Lisa, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
As the U.S. reviews its months-long conflict with Iran, the Pentagon has left the country's munitions stockpile dangerously low. Reportedly, the Pentagon has used more than 1,000 Tomahawk cruise missiles, which is roughly 10 times the number the U.S. buys every year. It's used more than 1,200 Patriot interceptor missiles at $4 million apiece.
All right, joining us now to discuss this is Bloomberg defense reporter Jen Judson. Jen, how bad is this weapon shortage?
You know, it's really hard to tell because, again, stockpiles are classified, but we are expending them at record pace in Iran. These are very expensive missiles, and they are not something that are produced rapidly, hundreds a month at all. So, you ran through some of those numbers here, but What we are seeing is some interesting forward movement. We actually finally saw the government put money where their mouth is. They have established a variety of 7-year agreements with Lockheed Martin and Raytheon and some other companies to rapidly produce the missiles that you listed, the PAC-3 MSC, the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense System Interceptor, the Precision Strike Missile. They're talking about tripling, quadrupling in some cases. For THAAD, that's quadrupling. And this week we saw a contract come across with a ceiling of $35 billion for THAAD interceptors. And that is to quadruple that number. And then as well for the Precision Strike Missile, we saw another $8 billion contract modification for that. That really shows that finally these are not just agreements. There is money flowing, and these companies will be able to start rapidly progressing towards higher numbers of output.
Jen, I want to ask you about a meeting that took place this week. So the president convened a meeting at the White House with defense executives. Pentagon officials were there as well. And in the run-up to that, the president said we're really in a big, strong economic push to do the weapons. And some of the car companies, if they have any excess capacity, they're making a deal to build missiles. And the Patriot in particular, we have quite a few of them, but we want to make sure we always have a lot of them. So talk about this moment, if you would, the backdrop to this meeting that took place at the White House, and then what seems like a deal that's being hammered out here with General Motors, I gather.
Yes. And there's not a lot we know about what they're actually going to be doing. General Motors and Lockheed Martin, for instance, signed an agreement to work together, just a memorandum of understanding, if you will, to figure out how General Motors can actually contribute using their commercial manufacturing expertise and know-how, how they churn out cars at crazy fast rates. There's hopefully something that Lockheed can take away from that in order to, meet the demands that they will need to meet. Other companies are potentially in talks with General Motors as well. Haven't heard of other car companies getting involved, but this shows some interesting progress in terms of the commercial world uniting with the defense world. It kind of reminds me of, World War II manufacturing, if you will, to try to meet the moment here.
This is the summer of memoranda of understanding, Christina. I must say, it's like
I feel I have less and less understanding per memorandum, but it's fine.
There's not a lot of meat there yet.
Yeah.
I also want to ask you, you wrote about this piece from Tuesday, talking about the Army Secretary's effort to make cheaper air defense interceptors. He said there's almost no place in our acquisition system where our bad habits manifest as horribly as in our requests for interceptor solutions. What does he mean by that, and what kind of timeline and cost slashing are we getting at here?
I think in one sense, he's generally talking just about how broken the Defense Department and the Army's acquisition system has been. Getting anything over the board, whether it's, a new drone or a new missile, takes decades. And they just simply do not have the time to do that. Nor do they have the money to continue to build million-dollar missiles to really get after the stockpile that they're going to need potentially to address global conflicts anywhere from China to Russia to Iran to North Korea. So they held an industry day in Arlington. I mean, this isn't uncommon to hold an industry day for something. But over 100 companies came together to talk about how they can deliver low-cost interceptors. We're talking about interceptors that cost thousands, not millions, like a PAC-3 MSC, because there are so many drones and cruise missiles and things being developed in swarms, and we're talking about hundreds of drones coming at you at once. That's simply nothing that a PAC-3 or a THAAD or a PRISM missile could handle. And they need to move fast because that threat is here. We're seeing that play out in Ukraine. We're seeing it play out to an extent in Iran. And so the Army has actually pledged to try to demonstrate capabilities within 6 months at test ranges with companies. They want to see if companies can come together to solve something. And then they want to actually try to rapidly scale, buy things within a year, and really start moving forward on the manufacturing front, which really has been quite unproven in the U.S. so far. There really hasn't been a company that has yet to show that they're able to to scale. However, there's a lot of companies out there talking about ideas and building facilities and beginning to that show a lot of promise that, if they think about the supply chain in different ways, if they think about, how they design and develop in different ways and make it easy to manufacture from the beginning, then maybe we can rapidly build these in the, the thousands and thousands.
Jen, let's turn to a different story, but one that also involves the Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. As I understand it, his pick to be the Army Chief of Staff was General Christopher Donahue, who's the Chief Commander in Europe right now, 4-star general. He was the last man out of Afghanistan. That was his pick, again, reportedly. And then this week we had Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth effectively forcing the general to retire. This is a personnel movement, but has kind of broader implications. What should we take away from Secretary Hegseth's decision to do this? What does it say about who is being promoted, who's being prioritized in the military under Secretary Hegseth?
I think it's difficult to know all the factors from the outside. What we do know is that the Pentagon is going through, significant leadership reshuffling. We're seeing highly respected generals being asked or forced to retire. We saw that earlier with the Army Chief of Staff, General George himself. We saw that even more previously to that, the Vice Chief of Staff of the Army was also asked to retire early. All of these men have extremely, very well respected and, are combat tested. And with General Donahue, just speaking with other Army senior leaders and, troops, this is a morale blow to them. He's considered a warrior. This is not an attack on woke. General Donahue is truly considered a warrior here. However, at the same time, has Secretary Hegseth announced that there's going to be a 6-month review of European force posture. There's a lot of uncertainty around, how the U.S. will play a role in Europe going forward, what that's going to look like. So this is just another. I think this contributes more to more shaky ground in Europe to not have a leader of this caliber in place. Not only is he U.S. Army Europe and Africa commander, he's also the NATO Allied Land Command commander, and he provides all the advice to the NATO commander on land forces. And so there's going to be a disruption as NATO continues very important discussions into the summer. He's retiring after only 18 months on the job, but he has a very deep career in understanding drone warfare and understanding innovation on the battlefield. The 82nd Airborne actually does a ton of experimentation and innovation, which he previously commanded. And so this is just a very big blow. That's the way many people in the Army that I've spoken to have conveyed this. And at a time when things are very shaky.
Jen, before I let you go, I want to know if you know anything more about this Iranian drone strike in the tanker previously, and then we have this other strike this morning. It's kind of unclear at the moment what the injuries are, but there was damage to the bridge and potentially other parts of the ship. Do we know what hit them?
Not yet. I have not been able to check up on that, but this is just something I think we're just going to continue to see over and over. We have seen this, as we continue to try to engage in negotiations. We saw just with the tanker, there was a response from the U.S. Central Command said yesterday that they actually did some strikes around Hormuz. Yep. So I imagine that, if this is linked to an Iranian drone again or another weapon system, that we will potentially see more strikes. It's kind of a back and forth.
Yes.
And not something I think that's going to go away anytime soon.
Jen Judson of our national security team covers the Pentagon. Jen, thank you very much. Appreciate you joining us on this Saturday.
Thanks so much, Jen. All right, Mounjaro and Zepbound turned Eli Lilly into a $1 trillion pharmaceutical giant, but every blockbuster eventually faces competition.
Bloomberg Originals looks at what Lilly is doing to avoid the boom and bust cycle that has humbled pharma giants in the past.
The GLP-1 boom has changed everything about Lilly.
10 years ago, it had a market cap of about $100 billion. Today, that's over $1 trillion.
Lilly went from a sort of sleepy Midwest drug maker into a $1 trillion pharmaceutical company and the most valuable healthcare company in the world.
You really rarely even hear about a $1 trillion healthcare company. The challenge now is, what is the next chapter after Zepbound and Mounjaro?
We're a medicine company, and we should make medicines for the biggest problems in healthcare.
The traditional challenge for pharmaceutical companies is maintaining success. Drugs have a shelf life, their patents expire, competition emerges, there are generic formulations of medication. Eli Lilly has had examples of this. It was dominating the market for depression medication with Prozac. Eli Lilly right now almost presents more as like a technology company with the kind of culture and hours that you might see in Silicon Valley and not Indianapolis.
You know, there are many people who benefit, not enough. Zepbound and products like that can change the lives of about 40% of U.S. adults who have obesity or overweight.
Insurance coverage has really lagged behind the need. Only around a dozen or so states right now that currently cover the drugs through Medicaid. So insurance coverage has been really patchy, and that's made it difficult for a lot of people who need these drugs to access them. Lilly has been pouring billions of dollars into manufacturing. They've made sure that they can really control their supply chain in order to supply this enormous demand.
A challenge now for Lilly is, can it extend and sustain the kind of success it has had over the past few years?
You can watch the whole story at Bloomberg.com/videos. Coming up, the billions that are being spent on artificial intelligence translating to a surge in political spending. The big money and the danger of deep fakes on the campaign trail. We're seeing it in campaign ads now.
It's great. We didn't have enough difficulties covering these campaigns.
There you go.
It's a whole new
Through the
front
midterms.
coming our
We're
way.
worrisome about the general beyond that. Dig into that more coming up here on Bloomberg This Weekend on Bloomberg Television, Radio, Bloomberg.com, and the Bloomberg Business app.
From the world of politics to the world of business, Joe Matthew and Kaylee Lines deliver news, insight, and analysis live 2 times a day, every trading day. Balance of Power at 1 and 5 Eastern, only on Bloomberg.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives, and that revolution is playing out in real time. From finance to defense tech, AI to entertainment, from the road to the stars. Bloomberg is bringing you the stories of companies and people that are pushing tech to new frontiers, and the politics reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech.
Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
Asia is at the forefront of some of the world's biggest stories.
And we're here, where the action starts in Sydney.
And in Tokyo, get ahead as the global trading day begins.
The Asia Trade, weekdays only on Bloomberg.
At 9:30 a.m., the market tells you what it's really thinking.
We beat the drum to the opening bell.
With deep analysis of the forces driving the price action.
Focusing investors on what really matters.
Where the money flows, which markets are changing.
Conversations with players shaping the narrative.
Innovative growth companies gravitate to NASDAQ.
It's not just like, let's buy the Mag 7 or AI.
That's a really compelling story.
This is where your trading day begins.
And this is Open Interest.
Only on Bloomberg.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Insight.
When they say fair taxes, fair share, what do they mean? Like, I agree with the fact, if it were up to me, I saw Jeff Bezos, who I love, swashbuckling. I don't think the lower people making under a certain amount have to pay any taxes at all. And that's what people seem to want. They think that somehow being anti-business is going to help a city. It's not. So we all want to pay fair taxes. That's not the point. New York's booming, so you're not going to see it in this year's taxes, but a lot of people are paying billions of dollars taxes left. Why do you want that? How does that help the lower paid person in New York?
So what do you make of the beef Mamdani has with Ken Griffin? I mean, there's been a lot of pushback as well from...
My view is, I think vilifying people, simplifying arguments, even if you think it's politically is a bad idea. And I think he probably realizes that was a bad idea. It's probably why he's seen a bunch of us now.
Don't miss Bloomberg Insight live weekdays.
The countdown is on. Everything you need to get the edge at the end of the market day. Get ahead of tomorrow's trading with The Close. Weekdays on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
In case you missed it, on The Pulse.
It's a $75 billion IPO, the largest in history. I think it presages the beginning of a pretty sizable wave of IPOs, which we're excited about. And I also think it shows you that the capital markets, led by the U.S. capital markets, but the global capital markets are demonstrating a willingness to finance this AI infrastructure build and this build in space, which is quite exciting.
Don't miss The Pulse, live every weekday.
What
what is going to be the consequence for U.S. markets?
We are seeing modest gains across European equity markets.
Take a look at how we're faring when it comes to Asian markets.
What was it like starting all over again? One day you're in a big company, with a big parent, and then you have to start all over again.
You know, it was really exciting and invigorating. I felt like a young kid again when I started Jones Road. And right before we launched, I definitely had a sudden, emotion of saying, uh-oh, what if I'm a one-hit wonder? I was a little scared, but then I just threw it up into the wind and went for it.
Jones Road, where'd that name come from?
Well, I sold the rights to Bobby Brown to Estee Lauder when we sold the company, so I couldn't use it again. So we needed a name because I wanted to launch Jones Road the day my 25-year non-compete was up. I needed a name, and I didn't have one. And I was driving to the Hamptons with my husband. My head was down on Waze, and I looked down, I saw Jones Road, and I said, Jones Road Beauty. He said, I like it. And that's how it became Jones Road.
It's Jobs Day, and Bloomberg has the report under surveillance.
Things have started to pick up in this economy based on the jobs number.
But there is a lot of concern about why the labor market is not keeping pace with what we're seeing right now in the AI space.
This Thursday, Jonathan, Lisa, Anne-Marie, and Mike will bring you crucial data and expert analysis at terminal speed.
The unsaid thing is that we're basically at full employment.
Apparently the labor market right now, not a problem.
The June Jobs Report, Thursday on Bloomberg.
Thank you for joining us live on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm Lisa Mateo. Let's update you on today's top stories. Apple is pressing the White House for approval to purchase memory chips from a blacklisted Chinese company as it looks to control chip costs. The Financial Times says while Apple isn't barred from using a CXMT as a supplier, the iPhone maker is seeking guarantees that the company won't be added to the U.S. entity list, and that would impose stiff licensing restrictions. Australia strengthening the enforcement of its under-16 social media ban. Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, well, he says big tech companies are not doing enough. So now the country will grant its online safety watchdog more powers and increase the maximum penalty for social media companies that fail to prevent those children from holding accounts. The PGA Tour continues at TPC River Highlands in Connecticut. Topping the leaderboard, Scotty Scheffler, 16 under par, followed by Victor Hovland at 14 under par. Akshay Bhatia and Eric Cole, they stand at 12 under par. And in the World Cup yesterday, France topped Norway 4-1. Cape Verde and Saudi Arabia tied at 0 apiece. Egypt and Iran, they tied at 1 apiece. Senegal defeated Iraq 5-0. Spain topped Uruguay 1-0. And Belgium, well, they beat New Zealand 5-1. Today, we've got some more action. Croatia takes on Ghana. Colombia battles Portugal. Algeria, well, they go up against Austria. Panama plays England. Congo battles Uzbekistan. And Jordan, they play Argentina. David and Christina just getting started because the round of 32 that starts tomorrow. Big excitement.
I, for one, am looking for when this field gets winnowed down because as you rattle off all of those games, that's a lot to have to watch.
I can't really focus. I need a slightly smaller number, although I do love the Cape Verde story.
Yes.
I was reading this morning, they started this thing 10 years ago to train up for the World Cup, very small population, and their whole national effort has been on this, and they're doing very well.
All right.
So go get them.
That's your team.
All right, yeah.
All right. Thank you, Lisa. AI has permeated nearly every aspect of society, as we all know, including at the ballot box. As the U.S. nears a crucial midterm election, a flood of money is already impacting the races.
And it's the focus of this weekend's big take called AI is already reshaping U.S. politics at every level. One of the writers of that story, Emily Burnham, joins us now. Emily, in the post-Citizens United world, it already takes a ton of money to win these elections. How are AI and tech factoring in now?
This is the first cycle that AI has entered the political arena.
Entered the chat, yeah.
Yes, has entered the chat with as much money as the crypto companies of the last cycle. So in total, AI companies and AI investors have pledged $275 million towards these midterm elections via super PACs. So we have a super PAC that's backed by the president of OpenAI and Mark Andreessen and Ben Horowitz, and we have sort of a dueling PAC that is backed by Anthropic, and each of them are vying to to boost candidates that are favorable to their AI regulation agenda. So this has become a central topic in these Sears midterm elections.
We have an illustration of that for those who are watching on television and streaming the show, just looking at the amount of money that those two super PACs in particular have poured in. And really a crucible for that has been right where we're sitting in the New York 12th Congressional District. We just had a primary here a few days ago. Walk us through, I guess, principally why this was the place where all of this attention and energy, and yes, money, was focused. Why the New York 12th?
Yes, so New York 12, crowded primary, and Alex Borez, who's a state assemblyman, when he first announced his candidacy, it was a long shot bid. But Alex Borez has long been known to the AI companies because he helped to write one of the country's first AI safety bills. And that was a bill they lobbied very hard against, particularly H16Z, which is behind one of the super PACs. So they announced they were going to spend $10 million to oppose his candidacy. And that prompted a huge proxy war from AI safety activists and Anthropic and tech employees who want more AI regulation of the technology they're creating. So money poured in really quickly. So the Andreessen-backed PAC ended up spending $8 million against Borez, but the AI safety community rallied behind him, and ultimately they spent over $20 million backing Borez. So this is a really expensive House primary. Borez did not win the race. He lost to Michael Lasher, who's another well-known New York political operative. But ultimately, the takeaway is not necessarily that the AI companies won, but rather that if in the races where they pledge to spend a lot of money, they actually have well-heeled opponents ready to spend in favor of that candidate.
Before we move on from the New York 12, I will say Michael Lasher was backed by Michael Bloomberg, majority shareholder of Bloomberg LP, the parent company of Bloomberg News.
It's this
well
name.
disclosed
It's this
on my
name
part,
right here.
yes.
Exactly. I want to talk because it's not just about money, though. We're also now in the era of deep fakes, and these AI-generated ads are kind of becoming more common. And you point out there's this ad for a Republican Louisiana congressional candidate, which has supposed liberals, including someone who looks like Billie Eilish, and another ad depicts Texas Democrat James Tallarico singing about transgender children. These are not real, but how are these deep fakes impacting the vote?
So deepfakes in particular impact low information voters and usually older voters. So a younger voter who understands what AI looks like would have seen the video of James Tallarico and known this looks like AI, this looks fake. But there is some evidence coming out that older people not as familiar with the nuances of what AI generated ads look like could be fooled by some of these things, and that could affect votes in some of these competitive primaries. It's still yet to be seen. Like experts in the space kind of caution from, experts in the space say people are more informed than you might imagine. So, maybe give people a little credit. But what's definitely true is Democrats and Republicans both are betting that this technology will help convince at least some voters.
And even if you know they're fake, I mean, people find them funny and share them. So it's a new way to kind of get your point across. Even if people are laughing at it, I feel like it does send some sort of a message.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got the amount, all of this money being poured in. That's one facet of this AI election. The other is these deepfakes that we were just talking about. I think the third is just like AI as a policy issue or as a political issue in this campaign. And I wonder if you could talk about that as well. So, on the show, we've talked about how it's pushed up energy prices and caused a lot of dissatisfaction and concern in a lot of communities across the country.
Lots of debates about these data centers.
Totally. How is that manifest in these midterms? How is it likely to be manifest kind of looking to the general elections? Just the role that AI is going to be playing as a political issue.
Right. I think consistently what we're hearing is that data centers are the physical manifestation of anxiety voters have about AI, job loss related to AI, energy prices spiking due to the data centers. So every single day, data centers become a more and more potent issue in federal elections. So, for like the past year, they've been important at the local level, but now people are looking to people, their congressional candidates and, incumbents, and they're saying, well, what are you going to do about this data center thing? Are you going to make sure that, it doesn't use up all our water? It doesn't spike our utility bills. What you're seeing is, even in some of these very competitive races, so thinking about Pennsylvania governor's race, this is coming up. Candidates are seeking to distinguish themselves, saying, I'm going to protect you from data centers. My opponent's not going to. And it's interesting. It doesn't go along partisan lines. It's not a left-right issue. It's sort of data centers are becoming a proxy for, I'll protect you from the establishment, from corporations trying to disrupt, what's happening in your backyard. So data centers, I think, are the most visible way that AI is coming up across the country. And I think probably in 2028, AI-related job loss is going to be the next big issue that people consider even a kitchen table issue.
So I was talking with Mike Shepard, editor who does a lot of AI editing for us, and I said, what are the odds that in 2028 we're going to call that the AI election? It seemed he was very clear that this is going to be a thematic trend here in this election, the next one, and the one after that.
Well, that was going to be my question. Only we've got about 20 seconds left, but we're focused on the midterms now. Do you expect this to be all exacerbated when it comes to the next presidential race?
Absolutely. These midterms are just a dress rehearsal. 2028 is when we're going to really see AI policy come to a head. Presidential candidates will have to stake out their positions, and we'll see which side wins.
All right, Emily Burnham, thank you so much for joining us. If you want to catch that article, it's great, and it's on the website right now and on the terminal and any place you read all the Bloomberg things. Thanks again, Emily.
When we come back here, it is time for the Pointed News Quiz. Highlight of my week, highlight of Christina's week, Lisa's, hopefully yours as well.
We tied last week.
We'll see what happens this week.
Stand by to stand by.
In case you missed it on Bloomberg Surveillance.
What is the worst Fed's response mechanism to inflation that is ticking, inflecting upward, given the fact that this Fed has been incredibly dovish? Are they going to wreck the party? I mean, ultimately, it's easy to be a skeptic, but I might as well join the party and not be so, skeptical, because you're not paid to be skeptical. You're not paid to poke holes. You are paid to just go with the mob.
Have we got that breaking news whoosh that drives across the screen? Can we play that now? Sort of breaking news.
It's the job. Come on.
Bramo, I think, going to look to confirm this, but I think Bramo just turned bullish. Is that what just happened?
I think that it just doesn't pay to be skeptical. You take a look at every single different benchmark.
Okay.
I mean, it's sort of, what are we trading people? We are trading them that you cannot lose, and that seems to be the way to go.
Bulls everywhere this morning, getting very nervous following that.
Don't miss Bloomberg Surveillance, live every weekday.
Technology is embedded in every aspect of our lives, and that revolution is playing out in real time. From finance to defense tech, AI to entertainment, from the road to the stars. Bloomberg is bringing you the stories of companies and people that are pushing tech to new frontiers, and the politics reshaping global tech markets. I'm Ed Ludlow, live in San Francisco, and this is Bloomberg Tech. Every weekday, only on Bloomberg Television.
In case you missed it on the opening trade.
We're holding our breath, and our economists put it very nicely in their recent research note. They're saying, for now, you got the support of tax refunds, so you had the fiscal support. This is running out right now. The real test for the consumer starts here.
How long are you going to hold your breath for?
I'm holding my breath in two different ways. The first question is complicated.
Unpleasant.
Well, that's what you have to do as a market strategist. It's unpleasant, complicated, but also exciting, I would say. So we're holding our breath and saying, are you going to reopen that strait? Then secondly, if you don't reopen it, how long can you keep running down oil inventories to make up the shortfall? The equity market's pricing 90%. Prediction markets are saying it's a 30% probability that you reopen it by the end of June. And then if you don't get these supplies back soon, then within the next 3 months, you should start to see macro weakness, not just in Europe, not just in China, but also in the US.
Don't miss the opening trade, live every weekday.
People ask me all the time, what is the key to being a really good investor? And I tell them it's to surround yourself with and work with the best investors you can find. On Bloomberg Wealth, I'm going to take you to meet the greatest investors in the world, the people that I would like to have managing my money.
As investors, we are always worried about the issue of the moment. Success is about time in the market as opposed to timing the market.
All right, it's time now for this weekend's Pointed News Quiz.
This might be your week.
It might be my week.
Yeah, I don't feel like I've been
week.
up on my random headlines that Lisa can torture
We'll
us
see
with.
how kind
But
Lisa Mateo
is here.
Lisa.
That's my job, guys.
Yes.
Okay, so those of you playing at home, if you're wondering why we have all these chips on the table, here's how it works. So they have 30 chips in front of them for you on radio. You can hear them rustling them nicely. They will place their bets on 3 different categories. So, you know, if you feel a little confident out of the first category, then you put more of your chips there. Or if you're like Christina, you just go 10 across the board each time, and it seems to be working for
I like to hedge my lack of knowledge, that's what we do.
All right, are you ready for your category?
Yeah, put them up there.
Okay, let's go. So the first category is Reddit.
Reddit.
Yes.
Social network.
Oh, wait, I
So
did
how
talk about
close do
Reddit
you feel
this
about
week.
that?
Oh,
I
okay.
didn't read anything about that.
I can't remember what it was, though. Okay.
Think about it. Second category is music. And third category is YA novels, or young adult novels.
Gosh,
okay?
take me back.
So place your bets. What do you think? Reddit,
Take you back,
music,
what, to like last week when you were reading young adult fiction?
Sorry, it was Reddit.
Reddit first, music second, YA novels third.
You know, I'm going to do the Ruffini
Across
10,
the
10,
board.
10
It seems to work.
It feels
works
safe.
very well.
It's a very diverse number of categories. All right.
It's the, yeah.
I think you've heard this first story. Okay.
Really?
Are you ready? Here we go.
I'm gonna get annoyed if I can't remember what this was.
Yeah.
Okay. Traders on the Wall Street Bets subreddit chose which struggling fast food chain as the latest
should have gone all
meme
in.
stock.
I should have gone all in on this one.
I can't remember which one it was. Hang on.
Oh, that
It
makes
wasn't
me so.
Arby's. It
It
wasn't
always
Pizza
makes
Hut.
me angry when I know.
When you know and you should have bet more.
You know.
Have confidence in yourself, David.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you know.
Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, Dave, what do you say?
Wendy's.
Wendy's.
Oh,
Wendy's.
yeah.
You guys are
All right.
correct. Yes.
Thought I was going to get an edge.
So they urged traders to, quote, save Wendy's before it's too late, okay? But it actually spiked the
Is this
stock
really
price
how the
by
markets
30%.
work?
Yes. Yes.
I'm telling you, a little word. And a fun fact for you, for those who are Wendy's fans, Dave Thomas, you know the owner, appeared in all the
Yes.
commercials. He appeared in more than 800 advertisings for the brand.
I know him well.
That is more than any other company founder in
Were
history.
Paul Sweeney here with us,
Dave
graduate of the
Thomas.
Fuqua School of Business at Duke. He would say that Dave Thomas endowed a lot of that business school. There's a Dave Thomas
really?
building
Where?
on the Duke
I did
University
not
campus.
know that. See?
I used to love those commercials. I guess he's not, obviously he's not around, but they're not doing anything with the founder anymore. It's,
No,
or the
but
president.
we have
It's not
seen
very personal.
Burger
It's-
King fire the king, famously now.
That's
They've gotten
right.
rid of him.
I don't know if that was a great idea.
Well,
but you know
I think
what?
they needed to.
Bring back Dave Thomas.
You got to move
That's
on.
what I
All
say.
right, sorry.
All right.
The Colonel still is at Kentucky Fried, right? Okay.
yes.
Yes,
Here we
of
go.
course.
Music. Are you feeling confident about music?
Okay. The David
reasonably so.
category.
Let's
see.
get to it. Clive Davis. Okay, so he passed away this week at 94. He launched Arista Records in 1974 after being pushed out by which record label? So what company did he get fired from before he started his new company?
Okay.
Ooh.
Oh, I don't know. I'm going to reevaluate. I'm going to reevaluate.
You're going to oh, gosh.
Okay. All right, I'm ready.
Christina's confident.
Yeah.
No,
Ready?
I'm not. I just
I
only
said
have.
RCA.
Ah, that was my
What
other
did you
guess.
say?
I said Motown.
You should have kept it in Columbia.
She saw
I was
it.
gonna write
She saw
RCA.
it. She
Totally
saw it.
saw it. I was like, don't erase it. Don't erase it.
It was
But
Columbia.
Oh, it was Columbia.
He actually
okay.
joined Columbia as a lawyer in 1960. He was
All right.
appointed president 7 years later. But yeah, he was let go. But he went over to Arista, and Whitney Houston was the big,
Yes, of
name.
course.
Yeah, that would help.
over there.
That would be a little
Did you
bit
just
helpful,
lose?
Yes.
10?
Okay, all right. I will give it
sure
my
we're on
chips.
board
My
here.
goodness.
I don't want viewers to be
And a
confused by the
Chip
state of
police,
affair
David
here.
Gura. There you go. There you go.
Okay, you guys are still
That's a
tied.
good lesson
all
going with
right?
your gut. I guess I should have stuck with.
Well, you didn't, and now we're even.
All right,
YA novels.
All right,
Young
Y-
adult
YA
novels. This is
yes.
where you're going to pull through. Okay, here we go.
Okay. I
The
appreciate that,
country,
Faith.
Namibia, has denied Starlink a license. So Starlink's name, here's the
read
question
this.
for you. Starlink's name was inspired by what 2012 young adult novel?
I have no idea. I
Not into
actually have
those,
no
huh?
idea. No, I'm not
No?
into those.
Kids
Sorry.
don't have
It's
them
been
on
a
the
while
shelf?
since I've been
No?
a young adult.
Starlink's name inspired by
know.
what 2012
I'm gonna-
young adult
I don't
novel?
know. I'm going to leave that. All right, I'm ready.
What are you writing?
I just
What
read
is
I'm going to
that?
leave it blank. I have no idea.
The Fault in Our Stars?
Fault in Our
The
Stars.
Fault in Our Stars.
That's right. Okay. It's the only one with stars I could think of. Okay.
Christina, yes. He said it in a Twitter post. He actually did that. So it's John Green's novel.
John
Comes
Green.
from actually Shakespeare's Julius Caesar.
Oh.
Who knew?
Who did
My
know?
dog is
Not
named
I.
Brutus. This is a quote I'm familiar
all right,
with.
there
All
we
right,
go.
David, you're behind here, so this is your chance for redemption
you.
because we have a bonus.
All right.
You ready? The bonus
yes.
category, though, is birthdays.
Oh, okay.
Okay? I believe you both are going to nail this. The U.S. is marking its 250th anniversary. What is the term for this milestone? It's a long one, and you need to spell it correctly.
It's got like 8,000 syllables in it. It's
you
like a...
need to spell it correctly. 250th anniversary. There is a term for that.
I can't remember.
I wrote...
Wait, it's a...
Not yet, David.
It's got to have sense in it. I can't remember.
Sesquicentennial.
Yes.
Oh, I wrote like quinquacentennial. No, I don't get that one.
Hold up. No, it's semi.
Oh, semi, because it's not the...
Correct.
Well.
That is hand over to Chips.
There you go, take it. What's bonus?
No, it was a bonus, Lisa.
Anyway,
Oh,
all right.
Come on.
Thank you.
All right.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Lisa Mateo.
But we have a lot of 250 stuff going on.
Yeah, we do. More on that in just one moment. But first, test your knowledge on all 10 questions. Take the Pointed News quiz at Bloomberg.com/pointed, where it's multiple choice.
Remember, it is multiple choice. It is less difficult, but less fun for Lisa because she doesn't get to torture you like she does us. So.
Yeah, well, torture away. Thank you very much for joining us on Bloomberg This Weekend. I'm David Gura.
I'm Christina Ruffini with Lisa Mateo. We hope you'll join us again tomorrow starting at 7 a.m.
And next Saturday for our special coverage on July the 4th, live from the Intrepid.
For our listeners on Bloomberg Radio, Masters in Business is up next. For our TV audience, Wall Street Week with David Weston starts right now.
Get your fixed income fix. Watch Bloomberg Real Yield every Thursday at 12 p.m. Eastern, right here on Bloomberg. Context changes everything.
This is a special edition of Wall Street Week devoted to the USMCA. I'm David Weston, bringing you stories of capitalism. The agreement President Trump negotiated among the United States, Mexico, and Canada in his first term is up for renegotiation. As much as President Trump might have it otherwise,
we don't need anything that Canada has. We don't need anything that Mexico has, but they need everything that we have.
Some $2 trillion of the North American economy depends on trade across borders with the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. But exactly what's at stake is different depending on the sector. American farmers are hurting badly. They're desperate for any help they can get to expand export markets hurt by other Trump trade policies, particularly with China. The energy industry doesn't need export markets as much as it needs to find power wherever it can for all those AI data centers coming online. Power that right now flows to the United States from Canada and from the United States to Mexico. But we start with the poster child for North American trade, the auto industry. Since the USMCA's predecessor, NAFTA, came into effect over 30 years ago, autos have been at the center of negotiations. The reason is simple. The industry is tightly integrated across northern and southern U.S. borders like the one between Detroit, Michigan, and Windsor, Ontario. This is the brand new Gordie Howe International Bridge that spans the Detroit River, separating the Motor City from Windsor. It was named for the famed hockey player who was born in Canada but crossed the border to lead the Detroit Red Wings to 4 Stanley Cups. Canada paid for the bridge, but now President Trump has put its opening on hold, which in itself is unlikely to divide the two cities' economies.
Those are not really separate cities. There just happens to be a borderline through them.
Economist Paul Krugman won the Nobel Prize for his work on trade.
Stuff does go back and forth. There's a tremendous amount of specialization, which is good for everybody. Reduces costs, increase efficiency.
One of the companies benefiting from that back and forth trade is Linamar, a manufacturer with headquarters outside of Toronto. Jim Jarrell is its CEO.
So we're 60 years old, and really, I think when you look at Linamar, we're an advanced manufacturing and product design technology company with 37,000 people global, 87 facilities around the world.
When we talk about the auto part of Linamar's business, how much of your production goes across either the Canadian-U.S. border or the U.S.-Mexican border, or for